every time someone says, oh, you don't have a college degree, you can't probably do that job, or there's a million jewelry designers out there, what's going to make you special? It's like, oh, let me show you. I get excited when someone tells me you can't do something. I'm like, ooh, say it again.
We're here with Kendra Scott, designer, CEO,
and the entrepreneur who turned $500 into $1 billion brand.
Welcome to the world of Kendra Scott.
If you want to brainwash your way to success and make a business or money on your own terms, this podcast is for you. You're going to want to hear this story if you feel stuck, if haters are getting in the way of you achieving the life that you want, or if you want to figure out how to take your business to the next level with stories from somebody who's done it without a legacy of money, just with a bunch of grit.
No one would invest in me. For 10 years, I bootstrapped this business. And as I run a $1 billion business today, I still have that scrappy startup mindset. You know, when you start with nothing, you never forget how hard that is.
Oh, yeah. Was there ever a moment where you thought, this business is going under, we're not going to make it?
How much time do we have?
Like every Tuesday?
I mean, Cody, there were so many.
So we're going to start with a tactical question.
Okay.
You started kind of famously with $500 and have built now, is this right, $1 billion brand?
Over.
Ooh, sexy. I like it.
Over billion.
Which is crazy because jewelry is just hard in general to get to that level.
Yeah.
But do you remember, what did you spend your first $500 on?
Materials. I mean, I had to make the product. So I had to make samples. I mean, it was like that basic. I went out, got a few tools, got the materials and stones. My mom brought over a card table in my extra bedroom. I had a bead board and some wire and tools, made my first sample set. I put it in a tea box, a wooden tea box, and literally took my baby son store to store, boutique to boutique in Austin, Texas, and showed my collection. And I came to the last store of the day and they offered to buy all my samples because they were going to do a fashion show that night. And I was like, thank God, because I didn't know how I was going to purchase more materials for the orders that were written that day. So selling all my samples, which is what I needed to do, I got the money to be able to buy more materials to fulfill the orders. So it was just like every dollar I brought in, I had to kind of reinvest it in the beginning and I had to make it count, like stretch. You know, every single dollar had to count.
How long did you work like that? Where it was like $1 in, $1 out, $1 in, $1 out?
For a long time, Cody, no one would invest in me. Okay. So I had to do it on credit card debt and a line of credit. For 10 years, I bootstrapped this business. And so every single dollar I made, I had to figure out, okay, how am I going to reinvest it and get the biggest ROI I can on that dollar? What I love about it is it made me incredibly scrappy. And as I run a $1 billion business today, I still have that scrappy startup mindset. And I'm so thoughtful about how we spend our money, what we're spending it on, what are we doing and thinking about it. And everyone I hire, I really remind them, like, I remember when I couldn't afford a second set of tools, folks. So before we just throw out, you know, $1 million on this project, let's bid it out. Let's really think about what we're doing. What are we going to get in return for this? Why are we doing it? And it's kind of having that, you know, when you start with nothing and you build it, you never forget how hard that is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's funny. The other day we did a YouTube video and part of the video was to smash a cake.
Yeah.
But they brought the cake out. You know when you could just tell something's expensive?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's the cake. Like, we're smashing it. That's
right.
The cake you
It was
bought?
a fancy cake.
It was a fancy cake.
Yeah.
And then I asked, I was like, how much did that cake cost? And they were like, well, it was pink and we needed pink and it was an $80 cake. And I was like, I know that's only $80. So like in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
But I do think the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And
but you could have gone down to HEB and got a $10 cake.
Girl, I about did. Almost like just for the plot. I was like, I might return this cake and delay us an hour on principle alone. You know, but I learned that same thing from one of somebody I look up to a lot, which is Dave Ramsey. He says their business moves at the speed of cash.
Yeah.
What would your team say? Like, do you have sayings where they're like, oh, there goes Kendra again with her one-liners about how we run this company?
Well, you know, I mean, I like to say we don't play for second. You know, they hear me say that a lot. Like, we're in it to win it. We have as sweet and kind and all those things that we are, we're extremely competitive. And we're fiercely, like, we want to go out there and we want to win. And we want to be the best that we are. We are never complacent. We are never like, ooh, our business is $1 billion. Let's all be happy and go, you know, drink margaritas on the beach. It's like, now we got to work harder. Every day, how are we going to surprise and delight our customer today? And those are things that, like, my team hears me say constantly. It's like, We wake up every day and it's like, we're going to be better than we were yesterday. And you've got to have that mindset in business to be able to be successful today.
Were you always like that? Were you always driven and like relentless?
Yeah. I mean, I was. I mean, I think I've always wanted to challenge, I'm curious.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to challenge myself. And when things are hard, on the other side of fear, there's always been something great that has happened. I remember being bullied in middle school and how hard that was, and being made fun of, and going and literally eating my lunch in a stall with my feet up on the toilet because there was hall monitors. You weren't supposed to be in the bathroom during lunch period. And so I'd hide in the bathroom eating my lunch because I knew I'd go in the lunchroom and it'd be horrible. But during that time, I was like, I'm going to run for student council president. Okay. I was like, this is the worst time of my life. And I didn't think I was going to win, but I wanted to like go out there and make some change. And I thought, there's other nerds like me who, maybe are feeling like I do. Like there's this popular group of kids, but then there's a lot of people who, maybe they don't feel like they have a voice, and I could be their voice. And so I ran for student council president. And my slogan was Kendra Can.
I like
Cody,
it.
Kendra Can.
Like it.
And I ended up winning. Wow. But that gave me this thing inside of me where it's like my purpose was like, I can be the voice for people who don't have a voice, and I can show them not to be scared. And my dad always said, I remember dropping me off in school, and I'd be like, oh God, just miserable walking in. He'd be like, baby, kill him with kindness. And it was that idea of taking the high road, and that the more somebody tries to tear you down, just remember who you are and use it as fuel to prove them wrong. And that has always been part of me because I've always felt a little underestimated. And every time someone says, oh, you don't have a college degree, you can't probably do that job, or, oh, there's a million jewelry designers out there, what's going to make you special? Or, you hear all those things. Now those things for me are this like fuel. It's like, oh, let me show you. And I get excited, Cody. It's kind of sick. I get excited when someone tells me like, you can't do something. I'm like, ooh, say it again. I'm like, oh, tell it to me again, because I'm like, I just have this, like, I'm going to show you what you don't see,
Yeah.
And so part of that competition part of like, when you look at businesses, it's like, I know we can be better. And I know I can create an experience for my customer that's going to be so powerful and so impactful. I know that we can give her something that she cannot get anywhere else. And so part of that is, I think, stems from that little girl that was eating her lunch in the bathroom.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah. I think you take the hate and turn it into fuel.
You do.
And if you can do that, you become unstoppable. But I feel the same thing. I remember David and I had this one guest that we wanted that wasn't going to come on. And I was like, it'll be either be now or we'll tell him no when we're way bigger later. So like, you 100%. Have to kind of operate as if. So do you think there is a way for somebody who is listening right now that's like, Lord, my brain doesn't work that way. When I get punched in the face, I stay down. It makes me sad. I'm like, how does that even happen? Is there somebody, if they're listening right now, how do you brainwash your way into success?
It's really, we are our worst enemies. People say that all the time. Our minds, the power of what if, right? We let the power of, well, what if I would have done this instead of this? Or what if I would have married Joe instead of John? Or what, we can spiral ourselves into complete paralysis by letting the what ifs control our mindset, right? And so we are our worst enemy. So when we are in those moments, this is where I get, and this is the competitive thing again. Somebody hurts you or says something, or, something doesn't go the way you want it to go. In that moment, you have a choice. I'm going to let them win. I'm going to let them have all of the power. I'm going to let them force me to stop loving again, or believing in myself again, or trying again. I'm going to give that to that person or that thing that just happened to me, or I'm going to take the control back. And I'm going to get up right now, and I'm going to remember who I am, what I can do, what I am capable of. And I'm not going to look in the rearview mirror anymore. I'm going to look forward, and I'm going to remember that. And I think when you have that shift of are you going to allow that person or that thing that happened to you control your future? Or are you going to take it as fuel to absolutely go forward in a powerful and strong way? That's a choice we got to make. And it's a powerful one when you can do it.
I'm going to run through a wall after this. I feel like, does your team leave a meeting and they're just like, let's go? You just have a bunch of meat eaters working for you, selling jewelry, but not that sweet. They're like ready to go.
Oh, we're fired up every day.
I love that.
I get up and I just cannot believe I get to live this life.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so grateful, Cody. I'm so grateful that I get to do what I love, that I get to work around such incredible, awesome people, that I get to do things and help other entrepreneurs now and help other women founders. Like, it is like a dream. And so, yeah, I wake up and I'm really pumped every day.
I love that. Okay, I want to go back a little bit. So let's say that somebody is listening right now. They're fired up. They just heard you get after it. They're like, all right, Kendra, I'm ready to go. But they kind of like don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. They're like, listen, she did it with $500. I got $500. If you were giving them a little sprinkle of magic, what would you tell somebody who had $500 to spend? What businesses are you like? Why aren't you starting that business right now?
Yeah. I mean, look, you've got to, I love this where you kind of look at like, what are something that brings you incredible joy? And what is something that breaks your heart? And the intersection of those two things may be your why. Okay. And when you start to think about that, it's like, what is something that I am so passionate about that I cannot find, or that I want, or a problem that I know needs to be solved that maybe I could solve it? Because if you have passion and purpose behind your idea, it's going to get you through those really rough days, because entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. Okay. So you've got to have a real why and a real purpose. And that's why I love kind of those two elements, because for me, it's like, what matters to you? What really matters to you? And for me, it was like, I knew I wanted to be, I loved fashion design since I was a little girl, loved it. My aunt was a fashion director, and she just brought me into this world where fashion was magic. And the reason I loved it is it wasn't about how it made me look. It's how it made me feel. Because I could be a little girl from Wisconsin and put on my aunt's Donna Karan jacket and some of her amazing jewelry. And all of a sudden I was like somebody else, I could be anybody I wanted to be. And so fashion was important to me. But I started this business with a newborn baby. And I was like, I want to have a business that allows me to be a present mother. I want to be a mom first. I didn't want to have the conversation of work-life balance. I wanted my family to be part of my business and create a business that allowed other moms and dads to be able to be for their families first and have a great career in the making. So it was all those elements, put together that really helped me kind of form this foundation of what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And then giving back was huge. I lost my stepfather to brain cancer. My first business was a hat company. I created headwear for men and women undergoing chemotherapy. He inspired that business. People were not buying hats, Cody, okay? I wanted it to be the thing. I opened a little hat store called the Hat Box here in Austin. I was 19 years old. I ran that little store 5 days a week. I helped a lot of people, but I wasn't making money. And I had to close that business. It was a huge failure for me. But I knew there was something there about what I was doing. The purpose of what I was doing mattered. And so if I got into business again, if I would be brave enough to get into business again, I wanted to be able to have those elements, to do something that I love with all my heart, to be able to have family as the focus and the heart of it, and be able to give back in a meaningful way. And that really was the foundation of Kendra Scott, and where we were able to form a product that made people feel good, look good, and do good at the same time.
So good. Yeah, I don't know if I told you this, but I've been wearing Kendra Scott jewelry since since the very beginning. I got to send you a picture of it. I've found kind of I guess it would be a vintage Kendra Scott.
I know. It's sad when that happens now, Cody, because people are like, I've got my vintage Kendra Scott. I'm like, oh man, that makes me feel so old. That makes me vintage.
It's timeless.
I know.
Timeless. And quality. Because what jewelry do you keep these days for 10 years? It's like only the nicest, most luxurious pieces. And then I buy a bunch of stuff that I wouldn't keep,
Thank you. I mean, I designed the collection to be a collector's kind of thing where you can pull it out of your jewelry box 10 years from now and still love that piece of jewelry, and you can build on it. We'll use similar stones like natural mother of pearl or, whatever it might be, where it'll go back to a piece that you may have bought 5, 10, now in this case, 23 years ago.
That is wild. How do we get old so fast?
I know.
Now,
I started when I was 1, obviously. So yeah.
That's right. Yes, you did. Me too. So many entrepreneurs started out as door-to-door salespeople. Sarah Blakely, Mark Cuban, you. Do you think that you need to be good at sales in order to be a great entrepreneur?
I think you've got to represent your brand, and you've got to be able to articulate the why to people and really show people the passion behind what you're doing. It doesn't mean that you don't have to be a great salesperson, but when you're authentic, you will be a great salesperson. When you authentically love what you have created, or what you're building or what you're doing, you don't have to be good at sales because that passion will come out naturally and authentically. So that's why I always tell people, if you're just doing something to make money, people will smell a fake in a minute when you walk through and try to do your sales pitch, because it can just feel, you know the ones, they feel a little slimy, they feel
thirsty.
Yeah. But when you go in with something that feels really authentic and real, it really translates really, really well. I mean, I went door to door with literally Kate and that little baby Bjorn and this tea box full of jewelry. And I was here in Austin. I think in Texas, it works better than maybe if I was in LA or New York, they may have called security on me. But, here they were like, oh, honey, give me that baby.
Exactly. It might have helped your sales.
Oh, 1,000%. Kate helped. He was giggly, sweet, happy baby. He's 23 years old now, but he was a great sales associate. It's a good trick.
Does he get a cut?
And babies.
Does he get a little?
He lives a great life. This kid isn't
doing fine.
This kid's not suffering, okay, Cody?
You're like, calm down. He's fine.
He's good. He's good.
So what makes a good salesperson? You mentioned authentic, but if you were like, all right, if you want to get good at sales, this is what you need to do, what would you say?
Well, I think you need to come in and you need to articulate what it is you're trying to sell in a very short sentence, right? Be very clear, be very concise with your pitch and eye contact. And then ask questions. If they're saying no to you, this is the greatest opportunity for information. To me, that is on in the mirror, meaning the conversation has just got it started. So you say, no, you don't want the collection. I go, okay, well, what didn't you see today that you would have liked to see? What can I show you next time? Because I've already now setting the appointment for the next time I'm coming back. When I come back in spring with my next season, I'd like to know what I could bring that you might be more excited about seeing. What other designers are you buying that you're really excited about? Can you tell me what it is about them that you like? So all of a sudden, my sales call became this information source that I'm now going to take back with me and learn from and then come back to. And I promise most of those no's turned into a yes because of that. I didn't go, okay, oh, you don't like me? Okay, bye, and I'm never going to see you again. It was, I'm going to learn and I'm going to win a yes from you. And I'm going to keep trying. And I would send cupcakes and cookies to buyers in the early days. If it was a spring theme, I'd send like bird-shaped cookies or flower-shaped cookies and handwritten notes. And I had one buyer from Neiman Marcus. She called me one time and it was like, years, I want to say, like 4 years or something. She finally was like, I've gained 11 pounds. Will you please quit sending me cookies and cupcakes? But I want to come in here and talk to me and come show me your collection. She's like, I love everything that you're doing. She's like, I was in church on Sunday and 6 girls in front of me were all wearing Kendra Scott. And she's like, at that point, she's like, the scale was talking to me and God was talking to me. She's like, come on in and show me what you got. But I mean, it's part of it is that persistence of like taking no and figuring out how to turn it into a yes and doing it through really getting that feedback from whoever it is you're selling to.
That's great. Do you teach, when people come into Kendra Scott, do they get like a Kendra Scott sales lesson? Like, is this something you teach the team about a certain way that you guys sell?
Yeah. So we say connection over transaction. I tell my team all the time, you look in retail stores and they're like, oh, the SPT and the UPT and all this stuff. And it's all data driven. And their teams are just so much on like, how many items per transaction am I selling? And they become almost robotic. I take all that and I throw it in the trash. To me, brick and mortar is a place for connection for brands, for people to get connected to your brand, to experience your brand, to become in the world of what it is that you're creating. So the goal for the people that you have in those stores is not to sell. I'm going to say it again. The goal for the people that you hire in your retail stores is not for them to sell. It is for them to connect. It is for them to make every single human that has taken the time out of their crazy busy schedule who decided to walk through the doors of your store, which is a gift, by the way, to make them feel loved, welcome, appreciated, and have the time of their life. Whether or not they leave with a yellow bag that day or not, if you've created a real connection with that customer, you will get a customer for life. She will share that experience with all of her friends. She may go online later when she's in bed after she put her kids to bed and go back on and shop online. But we have made a real connection. And if your retail stores become that place of connection, brands can absolutely blow up. But when you're focused solely on transaction, those are where you're going to see the for lease signs coming up real soon.
Buying a business or launching your own venture can feel impossible if you're stuck figuring out the website, logo, email, marketing all at once. But here's the good news. GoDaddy Aero is here to help. So just a few prompts, it builds a professional website, a logo, an email, even social content, all tailored to your business. It's like having a whole launch team in your laptop. Instead of months of grinding, you can go from idea to launch-ready business in minutes. No more waiting, no more guessing, just a real online presence that you can grow with day one. Suddenly, the thing that was just a tiny idea in a notebook is online, polished, and ready to scale. So if you're ready to take your idea to life, head to godaddy.com/Codie Sanchez and try GoDaddy Aero today.
You know, it's fascinating because I've experienced your brand so many times being here in Austin, and you just launched Yellow Rose,
Yes.
which is a stunning store. You know, I'll let you explain it, but let's call it like modern Western in my terms. But it is beautiful jewelry, kind of feels timeless, feels like I could have gotten it from the best pieces from my grandma. And we actually had a YouTube video that we did outside of your store. And I'm just remembering this now. I have a big production team. And so they go around to stores and ask, could we shoot outside? And all of our videos, we donate the profits that we get to varying charities. This one was like Austin Entrepreneurs or something.
I love it.
And so it was a boys versus girls sales challenge. So who is better?
Yeah.
And so they went and sold like different things, coffees, whatever, on the street. And I had the funniest experience. I had an experience with your team that was amazing. You're like, whatever you want. Out front, great. Come in. Are you guys okay? Do you need something to drink?
Right.
Like, oh, we'll buy it. You know, let's let the girls win. I'm buying that from the girl. The boys can't win this. They're incredible.
Thank you.
Then we had another brand that I won't say, where we were in front of their store for like 30 seconds. They were like, mad, came out, you know, who are you? You know, can I talk to the manager basically?
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
and one, it's public domain. So actually in the place that we were at, we didn't even have to ask, but we did it out of courtesy.
Of course.
And I'm thinking in that moment, you're exactly right. How many times do we miss an opportunity because of the rules or how everybody else does it, as opposed to thinking human connection wins?
Human connection always wins. And when you train your staff and give them the power to please, where they don't have to ask a manager for approval. If I am putting the most important job in my company, it's not any of our C-level suite, it's not any of our SVPs, it is my front line. Those are the most important people at Kendra Scott. And I need to give them the tools that they need to be able to be successful. And I need to give them the power that they need to be able to make decisions in the moment, to be able to react and make that customer happy and never have to even worry about all this red tape. You know, I worked in retail, like in high school and in college. And let me tell you, like the book you would get was like the size of the telephone book. For all you young folks, that was a thing. We used to have a telephone book. But it was the size of a telephone book. And it was all these policies and procedures and all these rules and regulations and this and this. That kind of stuff is not going to work. Every single person is a human being with a real thing that they're going through in that moment of their life. We don't know what that is. So we've got to come from a place of an open heart and an open mind. And every interaction we have needs to be that way. And so, you know, it's just a way on how you train and how you said hire. It's not just about training. Like, who we hire is most important. I don't care if you've had any retail experience. Quite honestly, sometimes I prefer if you don't, because I have to unteach some of those policies and procedures and the phone book stuff, right?
Rub the corporate off of them.
I got to get like, no, I don't want you to have all that. I hire people who just are brimming with optimism, who are brimming with positivity, who are brimming with warmth. The people that you just want to hug, that you feel that in their presence. When you interview with somebody and you don't want that interview to stop, you want to just keep talking to them because they're so awesome and so engaging and you just are like, oh my God, I love this. That's who we hire. And then I can teach them all about the stones and I can teach them about our settings and how to do color bar and all these other elements, but I can't teach them that. I can't teach them how they make people feel. That's either in you or it's not. And that's the number one thing we hire on, heart.
That's so good. My dad always says you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Right.
And that you can't teach desire, which
No.
I love that.
Absolutely.
But let's talk about some of the unhinged things you've done to grow Kendra Scott. Because I've seen a few really cool things that most billion-dollar brands don't do so much. Like I saw a pop-up you guys did with Sun Life and you're like handing out jewelry, but like kind of in a fun way at like 7:30 in the morning on a Sunday. I was like, this is wild. I was like, is that free? Like, is this for no reason?
Yeah.
So what are some of the craziest things you've ever done to grow your billion-dollar business?
So I really believe in touching the customer, like physically touching the customer. Now we have all this great power with social media media, and all, which is incredible, which I didn't have when I started my company, quite honestly. But there's something, again, about human connection, going out and not just waiting for your customer to come walk through your doors. Activity breeds activity. So creating activity is exciting, whether that's us going on to campuses where we're having our Elisa tour, where people could come and pick their favorite Elisa and they're getting cups of coffee. And, we'd have 300 students in line. They're engaging with an experience with our brand that is so special. And we're meeting them where they are at. And we're bringing them into our world. And then that's where the beauty of connection comes. And now all of a sudden we have a fan and you have an advocate for your brand. That's not just a customer, an advocate for your brand, which is really exciting. Like for our customers, in so many ways, are like brand ambassadors. The connection they feel to our brand is so different because of all of the community outreach that we do. We hosted over 25,000 events in our company last year.
Oh my God.
25,000. We have people in every single store that's all they're doing, whether that's Kendra Gives Back events with local charities, whether that's doing activations like you just talked about with, Sun Life or other brands. No matter what it is, we're out there every day hustling and we're touching people, physically touching people everywhere we can. And that makes such a difference in our brand. And I think so many brands today just have forgotten the power of that.
Do you think a lot of this stems from the fact that you did bootstrap it? Like most businesses in jewelry, I definitely don't know who runs them. I've never been to an activation unless it was like a very fancy one, maybe like a luxury one at the store, red carpet, something.
Yeah.
But this isn't very normal for your industry.
No,
is it?
I mean, I dressed my best friend up in a heart costume on Valentine's Day, and we walked up and down. South. This is a few years ago. Okay, I'm already $1 billion brand, and I made my best friend dress up in a heart costume as a mascot, and we just walked up to people on the street and asked about their love story, and I gave them jewelry. I started this way because I didn't have any money for big ad campaigns. I couldn't take out advertisements in magazines or, newspaper or whatever. So the only way I could get my product out there was I brought literal product. I gave away my product. And one of my friends, Clayton Christopher, he did Sweet Leaf Tea at the same time that I was starting Kendra Scott here in Austin. And he was like, I let people taste it because once they taste it, they want it. So they got to try it. Well, I was selling jewelry, not tea, but I was like, I loved that concept. And so I would go to every hot restaurant and I'd make sure that all the servers and the hostess, I'd gift them Kendra Scott. And I'd give them cards, business cards, and be like, here, there's discount cards to give to customers. If they ask, I just opened a shop on South Congress. I'd go to like the hair salons, the hottest hair salons, make sure every stylist was wearing Kendra Scott. You're sitting in a chair, you're looking at a mirror. Those hairstylists are wearing the jewelry. They're like, what is that? I got the product out there because that was the one thing I had, the only thing I had that I could use for advertising. Word of mouth was how I built Kendra Scott. 100%. And this was before we had social media and the ability to do that virally, right? We were doing it just like physically, having people go and tell their friends.
How do you come up with crazy ways to get attention without spending tons of money?
Well, you don't need tons of money. You just need creativity. And you need to not be afraid to, I think so many people are like afraid, like, oh my God, I'm going to get laughed at. Or that could be, as my 12-year-old says, cringe.
Yeah.
That could be so cringe. But you've got to be able to just go out there and have fun and not care. Stop caring what everybody else thinks. Be disruptive. That's the only way you're going to make it in business today is you have to be disruptive. I say it all the time. This is one of my slogans. If you're doing what everybody else is doing, you've already failed. You have to do it with your own fingerprint, your own voice, and you have to do it in a disruptive way. I love to use the example of the Blue Man Group, okay? How many acts are out there in the world, right, that are competing, just like jewelry, right, or all these other industries? These guys said, I'm going to paint our bodies blue, okay? This was their thing. We're going to go on the streets and we're going to dance and we're going to do our thing. Blue Man Group became because they were disruptive. They did something that other people would go, what in the world is happening? But it caused attention. It created excitement. Activity bred activity, and it bred bookings, and it built a whole business for them. So don't be afraid to be a little crazy.
It's so good. I think oftentimes what we also don't realize is the more success you have, the less people think anything you do is cringy. So I often am like, hey, listen, if it's cringy now, once you make it, nobody cares.
Right.
It's not cringy anymore. So just make it. Do everything you can. Have zero ego in the beginning.
Yes, 100%.
You can't have shame when you don't have money in your bank account.
No.
What about... You talked about some fun things you did, but what do you think, for somebody who's listening that's like, I want to go out there and start a business right now. I don't know if it's in jewelry or I have something else, but I know I want to go start a business. And I don't have much money. What are some non-glamorous, maybe doesn't require massive amounts of creativity, but just like if you do these 3 to 5 things, you'll have a harder time failing in business?
Yeah, I mean, first you've got to solve a problem. I like to look at my friends, Tiff and Leon with Tiff's Treats. They're good buddies of mine. I know, right? But cookies, okay? Cookies are a very common thing. Bakeries are a very common thing. But they took cookies and they said, what if we could deliver them hot? Like warm, That's different than what's out there right now. So they took a business that was, million cookies in the world. They took something and they created something that was special and disruptive by delivering them warm, right? They started out of their dorm room here at University of Texas in Austin, which is crazy to me, right? Delivering warm cookies. But what I say is, and I love that as an example, is it doesn't have to be like you're reinventing the wheel and creating some product that has never existed. You've got to create a product that is unique, but is still solving a problem and doing something in an innovative and fresh way that's disruptive. And if you can do those things, it doesn't require money. It requires creativity. And if you've got creativity, you've got in spades over a big check, right? Being creative can be better than any investment that you could ever get in your business.
That's so good. I need to think about it more. I have a to-do list over here for David and I after this. Are we disrupting enough, David?
You're so disruptive, Cody. You are.
I don't know. But I think the other thing that's interesting about you is you kind of have an outsider perspective. It's not like there are tons of billion-dollar jewelry businesses being made in Texas in general, certainly not in Austin. Did you ever consider yourself an outsider? And is it an advantage to being an outsider?
Yeah, for sure. When I started, I remember going to New York and going to the Javits Center and setting up apparel and accessories shows and setting my booth up, and buyers and editors from the magazines would be like, oh, are you in LA or New York? And I'd be like, well, no, I'm in Austin, Texas. And they'd be like, oh, you really need to move to the coast if you're going to have a successful brand in fashion. And I was like, well, you don't know Austin, Texas. You don't know the creativity here. And what they didn't also, what I realized is I looked different because I was being influenced by this incredible place I was living. I wasn't trying to be like everybody else. In New York and LA, they were all just trying to look the same. You'd come across my booth and it was like, whoa, what's happening here? Like, this is totally different. But it's what really, helped us get on the map because we stood out and we looked different. So being from here really was part of the DNA of Kendra Scott. And I think a huge advantage. The other thing, and I said this to someone earlier today, was Texans support Texans. This state is a crazy thing. And it's like the entrepreneurs here, they hold hands, they lift each other up, they share information. We really have a mindset of like, we're competing against the world. So let's help and support one another. I can't tell you how many incredible business owners and friends I have in this state who literally were there for me and vice versa throughout all the different stages of my growth of my business. And I wouldn't be sitting here with you, Cody, if I had started my business on the coasts. I wouldn't, because I needed that support and that love. And this state really gave me my wings to fly.
Yeah. Well, it's also scary sometimes doing things a little bit different. But if you're in a place that's already different, that's a great unfair advantage that you can kind of mimic what's happening around you. And that in itself is not normal. Right. I never thought about that for you. What about slight change of topic? I'm seeing this gorgeous ring on your finger. Oh. So beautiful. Very tiny.
He did good. He did good. He did good.
Okay. So you're engaged to Zach Brown, who I'm a huge fan of. My parents are too, like giant fans. Yeah. But I was wondering, there are all these narratives about women and success and how successful women can't also be in good relationships. And I was just like curious your take, do you think, are men intimidated by a $1 billion CEO woman?
I think some men can be intimidated by a $1 billion CEO woman. And I think there are some men like Zach who absolutely just want to lift me up and do anything they can to support and love and cheer me on, and vice versa, right? We both have very big lives and creatives and so many similar things about our, he's music, I'm jewelry, but what we do is so similar. We're trying to bring joy to people through the art that we create. We're trying to make people happy. We love our kids so much, and our children are the heart of our entire universe. And so all of those things are so aligned. And when you find a partner that you have that alignment with, and there's no competition, it's just, I love you. I'm rooting for you. I see you. I want to do everything I can to lift you up and then to also be your rock. Because I haven't had that before, Cody. I had felt like the world was on my shoulders in a lot of ways. I was a single mom for much of my starting the business and getting the business going. And it was really hard. And I didn't have someone that could hold me when things were hard. And I always felt like I had to be the strong, like tough one. And I could never let the face go. And you know what I mean? And like, I had to just be like, okay, put the game face on. It's going to be okay. And even when I was, losing confidence in myself or whatever, I had a few good friends and people that I could talk to. But to have a partner, a real partner that I can go, God, this is tough for me, and have someone who gets it, who understands the weight of what it feels like to carry that burden, and to be able to just hold me in that space and be like, I hear you, I see you. I can't solve the problem, but I'm here to help you and be a shoulder. Whatever you need is a really amazing thing, and I'm so grateful for.
Yeah. No, I totally relate to that. I think I had a partnership before that it didn't work for me that way. And I think competition can be tough sometimes when you're playing in this game. And for most of, human existence, we weren't really competing with each other.
Yeah.
And so I always I go back and forth between, do I ever ask the question or not? But I think there's so many women out there right now who really, we were girl bosses and we, climbed the corporate ladder or built our businesses or whatever. Yeah. And then I think there are a lot of women that I talk to, at least, it's the number one thing they want to talk about. They're like, I'm successful in my career. I'm motoring, but like, will it be possible for me to find love and a man that can handle it?
There are people out there, there are men out there, and then women out there too, right? Like it goes both ways, right? And it's like, you can't just be the girl boss in every situation. Yeah. Like there's masculine and feminine, right? Yeah. And like, I can be totally tough girl boss, making the decisions, doing all the things. But there's moments when I want to come in and I want to be more the feminine side of me. And I want him to like, honey, you decide what we're having for dinner tonight or where we're going to go. Like, I don't want to have to make all the decisions. And it's nice to be able to have that dynamic and be able to know that you can have that ebb and flow in a relationship and that you're in a safe place to do that. There's nothing more powerful than that. And it's important to look, I hadn't gotten it right all the time. And I look at you and, you've known your guy for a long time. And I have friends that have had relationships that, they've had since they were in high school or college. And I'm like, wow, like that's amazing. But I also think we need to give each other grace. Not everything works out the way we always want it to. No one goes into a marriage or any type of relationship thinking it's going to end. We're all hopeful, right? That this could be what happens. And if we allow, again, like we talked about before, a failure or a divorce to stop you from ever loving again, that'd be a shame. We've got one life on this earth and I want to make it count. And yeah, some things may not have gone the way that I had thought they would go, but I still believed in love. And, meeting Zach at this stage of my life, he may not be my first, but he's my last.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, he seems really cute on Instagram.
Which is the sweetest,
he's got all
human.
The tats, so you wouldn't think.
He's a teddy bear.
Is he?
Yes.
I won't tell anybody.
Now the world knows. He, as a dad too, he's got 4 daughters and a son. He is the most incredible girl dad you've ever seen. Just so protective and loving, and it's amazing thing. Yeah, you can tell I'm pretty
guys. Yeah, exactly. Sounds like we want to keep up. We want to keep him for a minute.
100%. Yes.
Yeah, I think sometimes the tough guys also are the ones that are the kindest. Like Chris, former Navy SEAL, everybody always thinks he's the mean guy. Yeah. And sometimes I'm kind of the mean guy. And then he is actually the kind one. Yeah. But that's really nice of you to share. Because again, I think it's hard out there. Like all the statistics say we're getting married less, we're in relationships less, we're kind of a little bit lonelier. And so
but having a partner is so amazing. Having a real partner in life and having it where you've got each other. Yeah. That that the other person 1000% has your back, loves you, is rooting for you, is cheering you on, is your biggest supporter. If you can find that and then give and have that the same for that's how I am with Zach. Like I'm his biggest fan, in all things that he does in his life. And I just want to be additive. And I wake up and I go, what can I do today to make him happy, to, to be there for our family in a meaningful way, to make sure he knows how much he's loved. And he does the same for me. And when you have that reciprocation in a relationship, it's really magical.
That's a really good note, actually. That idea of like doing one nice thing a day for your partner. Like, how do you go above and beyond for them?
Every single day, no matter where we are, we start our morning with "Good morning, I love you so much." Whether it's a text if we're in a different city or whether we're laying next to each other in bed. We do not get the first words out of our mouth is "I love you." And the last words out of our mouth before we go to bed are "I love you." And, even with my kids, I don't ever get off the phone with my kids without telling them I love them. They hear it all the time from me, but I'm like, I'm going to tell you. I know, but I'm going to tell you all the time because I never want you to ever worry about that.
I love that.
You're so loved.
My mom was here today. She's been at our event. We had an event all weekend. She's been hanging out. It's the most incredible thing to be able to bring your family along with you,
Yes. I love that you do that because I say all the time, people, we get the work-life balance question as women a lot, right? But men don't get that as often. We get it all the time. Mm-hmm. But I built a business where family could be part of my business, and bringing my kids along with me and getting them see what I do and what my work looks like, and understanding that gave them such a unique perspective in life. And thinking about now I've grown men who are my sons and them starting their own businesses and having that almost like by osmosis experience, from the pack and play in my office to where we are today, watching it all along the way. It's really part of their like genetic makeup now because it's like they've been in it, every single day of their life.
They're like listing off SKUs to fall asleep every night. I like
Seriously.
that. So did you actually, I've always wondered that. I haven't been blessed with kids yet. Hopefully that happens one day for us. But did you bring your kids to work?
All the time.
You just strap them in?
I still do. In the early days before they were in preschool, I had a pack and play and I had a bouncy chair. And there was like 6 of us in the office. And I'd be on the phone with a buyer like Nordstrom and I'd be like passing Beck, my baby, and I'd be like, take him. Cause if he'd be like cooing or, he was a really good baby, thank God. But, one of the other girls in my office would be like holding him like in the bathroom while I'm on the phone with Nordstrom, But then when they'd go to school, I remember like preschool, they started at 3 and I would drop them off and it was like, okay, I have until 1:45 to just do as much as I possibly can and do all the calls and all those. And then I would bring them back to my design studio with me until we finished up that night. I traveled with Cade, my oldest, when I would do New York, all the shows. I had friends that lived in New York and LA. They'd thank God for friends. It takes a village. It really does. But I would be selling during the day and they'd be babysitting for me and watching him. He had like 70,000 frequent flyer miles at the age of 3 because he went everywhere with me. He was my little sidekick. And, but I loved it. And in the early stages, like I couldn't afford a nanny. I couldn't afford those things. Yeah. Like every dollar I was spending, I was having to put into trying to build the business. And I was like, I can figure this out. I look back on it now and honestly, I'm like, how did I do that exactly? Because it wasn't easy, but it's the only thing I knew.
What advice would you have for a single mom that wants to start up a business like yours?
Well, I think that's the thing, right? You create a business. The beauty about entrepreneurship is you create your own utopia. Like, what is your utopia? What does your dream life look like? All right, for me, I wanted to be in jewelry and design and I wanted to be there for my little baby boy. I wanted to be the best mom I could possibly be. I didn't want to miss any of his games. I wanted to be there for him when he was sick. And that meant I couldn't go back to working in an office. I couldn't go back to working for somebody else. So if I wanted to create that, what was I going to do? And that meant that I created a workplace that allowed not just myself, but others to be there first for their families. Because it's not just for the boss, it's got to be for everybody. And you lead by example. So I think, you build the world, right? And you kind of reverse engineer it. Once you know the destination, you can build your roadmap to get there. Sometimes we try to build the roadmap before we know the destination. And that can be very confusing. And that destination, by the way, will change every 3 years or so. You're going to see it and you're going to go, that's where I'm headed. And then about 2 years in, you're going to go, ooh, wait, now I'm headed here. And now I got to build a new roadmap. And so that's going to change a little bit. But when you really start to think about how you do it, creating an environment where family can be part of what you do. Not every single day. My kid couldn't come with me on every sales call or everything. But I tried to do as many things as I could that allowed me to be able to be there and then set boundaries. So I knew, all right, I'm going to pick my kids up from school every day. I want to be that face that picks them up. Now that meant that I had to do some other things and sacrifices. I couldn't do long lunches. I couldn't, do some other things that some of my other friends were doing. I had to make other sacrifices, but that was my priority and that was important to me. And so really understanding your priorities and what's important to you really will help you kind of create that vision of how to do it.
By the way, I have a live event. I only do one a year. It's huge. How big? Really big. In Austin, Texas, just for people who want to make more money, buy businesses, build businesses. It's called Main Street Over Wall Street. So if you liked this episode, you're probably going to want to be there. There's only a couple hundred spots left. So click below. I want to shake your hand in person in Austin, Texas, or go to msows.com. MSOWS. We'll see you there. Hey, it's your friend Cody. By the way, guys, I just realized that a bunch of you are not subscribed, which is crazy because I feel like we hang out every week and we talk about how to make your life better, how to make your bank account bigger. And I want to do more of that. So one, thank you for being here. Like sometimes I'm like, pinch me moment, And also share this with a friend, subscribe. The only way we grow is when you share it. And we only show up on your feed when you subscribe. So I promise that if you do that, I will continue to make this podcast a way for you to steal all my rich and successful friends so that your life can be even better every single day.
Yeah, so true. We've talked about a lot of highlights, how big the business now, some of the new launches, but I know that is not how business always goes. So was there ever a moment where you thought this business is going under? We're not going to make it.
How much time do we have?
Like every Tuesday?
Seriously. I mean, Cody, there were so many. I look back on it. There were so many, and I think you talked about this, something about your dad. It was like head in your hands moments.
Yeah.
Is that what you say your dad talks about?
Yeah.
And I remember hearing you talk about that because I was like, oh my God, I have so many head in my hands moments on my kitchen floor, like sobbing, crying, thinking I'm going to lose my business. One of those was during the 2008 recession. I was strictly wholesale, so just selling to other retailers. I didn't have my own retail stores. I didn't have my own e-commerce at that point because my first business, the Hat Box, failed. I wasn't going to go into retail again. I had sworn off retail. So I thought wholesale was safe until the recession hit and I realized it was not safe, that all the power of my business laid in these other buyers, store owners, buyers for these department stores who were getting laid off, stores that were shuttering. I had no direct connection to my customer. I was letting everybody else sell my products for me. I wasn't selling them directly to her and finding out what she really wanted. So that 2008 recession was the greatest gift Kendra Scott ever had because it forced me to look at my business differently. My line of credit got called because, and I had paid everything on time, but I was considered high risk because of our category. So I had to find a local bank. I had to put everything I own up for collateral. I don't know. I joke, like I told my son, Kate, I go, you might have been on that collateral list, baby. I'm so glad things worked out. I mean, it was like, what do you need? Like I was shoes off my feet. I was like, I'll put whatever I've got, just please take this loan. And fortunately, it was a female president of a local bank, Texas Capital Bank, that took my loan from a big bank. But that moment, I remember thinking, I'm going to lose this business. And I had this woman, I wasn't a loan number to her. She had worn my jewelry for years. She knew who I was. She knew my hustle. She knew my drive. And when I looked her in the eye and I said to her, I will pay this back and then some, Carrie, she knew I was going to do it. And she believed in me and she took that loan. And I mean, I say that all the time, it's relationships, right? And it's keeping your word and being consistent and do what you say you're going to do. And build that trust over time. But that was a scary time. But I opened my first retail store 2 years later in 2010 when everyone was shuttering on South Congress. I opened our first retail store, moved our offices right above that little store. So we all had to walk through the store to get to our offices. And I was like, we are going to sit in this store, all 10 of us, because there's only 10 of us at the time. And we're going to learn from our customer every day. We're going to find out what she loves, what she wants more of. This is going to be our laboratory. I still didn't know we were going to open retail stores after that. I thought we'd have this one retail store in Austin, and then we would just keep building our wholesale. And then I wanted to build e-commerce. So we built e-commerce and launched that at the same time. But that store, there'd be lines around the block to come in. And I was like, maybe there's something to this retail brick and mortar thing. And here we are going to have 170 stores at the end of this year. But it was one store at a time. When you look at the big thing, and like you said, you can't eat a cake in one bite. each store, that success gave me the opportunity to take the money and the funds to reinvest, to look at the next opportunity. And I had to get it right. And I had to make sure the formula was right and the presentation was right and how we were selling was right and the displays were right. And you don't rush it, right? You take your time and you listen and you learn and then you act. And sometimes brands try to just act. They forget about the listen and learn part. And then they're like, well, why isn't this working? And this isn't falling apart. And this thing is not working because we haven't taken the time to really give the patience that it takes to build a really strong business. It takes a lot of patience. And we just did it thoughtfully and we did it methodically and we went where our customers were. Not that was sexy, not where the sexy addresses were. Plano, Texas does not sound sexy to a lot of brands. That store was 1,500 square feet and it was doing $7 million a year.
Oh.
So I called it Plano Insano. I'm like, I made t-shirts for our team. I was like, that's where I want to be. Let's wear more Planos, you know?
Yeah.
And so many businesses get caught up in like what they think, oh, this brand is here and here. So I have to be here and here. You got to be where your customer is. Listen to where your customer wants you, and that's where you should go.
Such a good point. Yeah. I mean, it's so easy to fall into like what you think cool is too.
Totally.
You know, I remember falling into that too. It was not cool to get on the internet and talk about finance and private equity. It was way cooler when I was at Goldman and I ran my own private equity firm and I was fancy and I wore all the things. But then I realized, actually, I don't really want to get rich quietly. I want to be around a bunch of other people and maybe help them do the same thing, even if it's not as cool. Yeah. But that's a hard jump.
Well, it's way cooler now. Look at you.
It's cooler now. It's cooler now.
Cool
but when
now.
I started
Come
out, they
on.
were like, what are you doing? Are we TikTok dancing now? Have you lost all, semblance of care? But I am curious. Let's say that there's somebody listening right now.
Yeah.
And they're in the pain cave. They're struggling in their business. What would you say to them to get them out of that deep, dark hole?
So sometimes it's so hard when you're in the middle of the forest, in the weeds all around you, to get that 360 perspective, right? And to really, we get in our minds, like I look at the hat box as the greatest lesson for me. I wanted hats. Hats were the thing. Everyone was going to wear hats again like it was 1940. It had to be hats. What was working was the jewelry I was making and putting on the counter in the little case that was selling out the day. But in my brain, it was the hat idea. It was opening 100 hat box stores. I wasn't paying attention to what was working until I closed that store and customers started calling me and saying, I want a pair of earrings for the necklace I bought. And my sister loves the earrings I bought in your hat store. So I had went and got a job after I closed the hat box and I was just side hustling, making jewelry. But the point of that story is that when we're in it, we can't always see it. And so to get yourself to almost have this like bird's eye view, like just lift yourself out of that moment and really think about what's working, what's not working. Write it down. What are people, where are you seeing some traction? It may not be the original idea. It may not be what you thought it was going to be, but somewhere in there, there's something that is sparkling, something that's standing out. Now focus all of your energy on that. Even though it's hard because you're thinking, oh, but I spent all this time on this other part and it was supposed to look like this and be this. It's sad, right? To put those things away and go, I might need to put that in a drawer and it's not working right now. But this little thing over here, something's happening over here. Maybe I should focus a little more time there. Maybe I should nurture that a little bit more. And I can't tell you how many business owners I have met that the little thing that they didn't think was the thing became the thing. And the thing that they thought was the thing ended up being completely the opposite. And that is exactly who I am today. It sure wasn't hats. I'm doing hats again with Yellow Rose, but it wasn't the hats.
Yeah, it's such a good point. Yeah. We call it kill your zombies.
Yeah.
Because just because it used to be alive doesn't mean it should always stay alive. Some things you got to die.
And it's the hardest thing when you start a business or as an entrepreneur. It's like you become so attached. And it's so hard sometimes to let go of those things and disattach yourself from it and be like, okay, that's not working. Yeah. And to have the vulnerability to say, okay, this is scary. This is new uncharted territory that I'm going into, but I've got to let that go. I've got to quit putting all this focus and attention on it because it's not productive. Nothing is working there. So what am I going to do to shift into something that can work?
What made you start Yellow Rose? It's such a cool brand.
Thank you.
And not not what I expected from like the Kendra Scott I originally knew.
Well, there's two Kendra Scott. So Kendra Scott, I'm the person, you know, and I love color. Obviously, I love beautiful color gemstones. I've been designing for 23 years, and being here in Texas is such a big part of the design aesthetic and things that inspire me. And so vintage pieces of Kendra Scott have a lot of this Western inspiration and really cool, you know, kind of it's my love letter to Texas, so to speak. So I started bringing some of those vintage pieces back, and I was seeing such a resurgence with Western wear. And obviously all of us watched, you know, all the shows, Yellowstone all the things. And everybody was going Western. I mean, you even saw Louis Vuitton was going Western. I was like, what's happening? They're French. I'm Texas. I know Western. And part of my life is ranch life. I have a ranch in Wimberley, Texas. It's my happy place. When I'm not, you know, in the boardroom, I'm in my boots in the barn. And I love this lifestyle, and I love vintage Western. So I would go and shop vintage all the time, and the cuts of the bell bottoms and high-waisted jeans and the really beautiful Western cut shirts that were fit just right, and the pearl snaps and all the details. I could wear that look and still be very sophisticated. I could wear a Western cut shirt and a gorgeous pair of trousers to a meeting in New York City, and people would go nuts. And so I knew there was a way to bring this style, this aesthetic into the modern world and make it to where it's not just rodeo wear. This is wear that you could wear anywhere you go and look absolutely amazing. And I wanted a brand that put the woman, the cowgirl, front and center. Every other Western brand was cowboy first, and then the afterthought was like women. And a lot of the cuts were like taking a men's Western shirt and just making an extra small version of it. Well, a man's body and a woman's body are very different. We want better darts. We want it to fit different. And so for me, it was really about let's figure out a way to do something that's so unique, but doing it in a modern way, how I dress and how I, you know, express myself with this Texas style. And so that's how Yellow Rose came to life. And just like I talked about, we tested and we learned. We put it in the back of Kendra Scott flagship in little back room, and we tested product, and we brought in collabs, and we brought in boots, and we did a collab with Wrangler to see, you know, what she liked in, you know, different denim. And we just learned for 2 years. We had a tiny house, and we took it to every rodeo and music festivals. And it was just all about creating experience for our customer and bringing this vision of this brand and just learning and saying, is there something here? Before we're going to just open stores and we're going to put all this investment into it, is there an appetite? And there was a huge appetite. People were going crazy and still are going crazy for the product. And it's just really fun that this is a big part of who I am. So it's very authentic. It's part of my life. Yellow Rose Ranch is my other home. And to be able to bring people into the place that I love, my happy place, is really fun to be able to build a new brand at this stage.
Yeah, it was cool. I remember when you guys launched it, and they're like, I believe like, I don't know, a couple really cute girls carrying a bunch of yellow roses, handing them out all over South Congress, accompanied by like large horses and
for
cowboys,
sure.
I think.
Yeah.
I was like, what is going on South Congress? And it was you.
Well, I even in New York City, when we went, this is before we had Yellow Rose, and the Yellow Rose is the Yellow Rose of Texas. And when I moved to Texas, my stepfather met me at the gate. I was 16 years old with my mom, and he handed me a dozen yellow roses. And he said, this is the Yellow Rose of Texas, sweetheart, you know, welcome home. And every birthday I got yellow roses, and it just was very sentimental and meaningful to me. But yellow is our brand. Yellow is the color of happy. It's the color of joy. So when we opened our Kendra Scott store in New York City, we brought yellow roses to the subway, hanging yellow roses in the subway, passing yellow roses out to people. This is even before Yellow Rose was a brand, but it was like our way of saying the Yellow Rose of Texas, we're in New York. Texas is here, you know?
It's just so smart. I mean, listening to this, I'm just like, God, if I'm an entrepreneur, I'm like writing down ideas. Like, how do we just take little things that are real stories in our life and integrate them? Because nothing sells like a story. I mean, I love Elon's line that salesmanship is showmanship.
Yeah.
And it's so true. If you want to sell, you got to show.
And you got to be authentic. And like you said, we all have our own unique story. There's only one of us, okay? Right. And sometimes we want to be like, oh, I don't want people to know that about me, or this hard thing that I went through. I got to polish up my persona. No, we want all that because your unique story, all the struggles, the triumphs, all of the things have led you to where you are in your life. Talk about those things. Build a business around those things. Build a life around who you are. Don't try to be somebody else. Embrace who you are. And when you do, people will absolutely be attracted to that because they're going to see authenticity. They're going to see that it's real. And I said this earlier, people smell a fake.
Yeah.
You know, be your real authentic self. And it's so amazing what can happen.
What was it like to work with Dolly Parton?
Oh
I
my
gotta
God,
ask.
Cody.
I mean, I saw the partnership and was just like, that's the peak. It's the pinnacle.
My dream. So I basically was like, before I die, I got to meet Dolly. I watched the movie 9 to 5 on my VHS tape till I wore it out. Okay. I had to get a new one. I'm not joking. You can wear a VHS out, and I wore out 9 to 5. I love that movie. I watched that movie so many times and I loved it. And what's so funny is when I built Kendra Scott HQ, it's got a kids room with, you know, all sorts of kids activities. It's got mothers nursing rooms. We've got a gym. It's a whole like utopia for working women. And I realized when I started walking through, I go,
Are like cigarettes in the 1980s?
You mean the thing that we don't quite know is killing us, but is actually killing us? Yeah, absolutely. I think RFK Jr. said it really well, and this is timely, that we're clearly being poisoned. I mean, anyone who looks at Westernized Americans from a zoomed out perspective over the last 50 years can see that something has gone horribly wrong with us. Obesity rates, diabetes, cancer, autoimmune disease, everything is going the wrong direction. And yet we are being counseled by our government to eat healthy, and more people will respond to surveys saying they're eating healthy. More people will respond to surveys saying they're exercising. Less people are smoking, but everything is going in the wrong direction. We're fatter, sicker, less healthy, more depressed. So what's going on here? There's something happening.
Yeah, and what do you say to people who say, we're just eating more calories because food is better tasting and cheaper and more available, so it's just calories, it's not the GMOs, it's not the processed foods at all. What do you think?
I think they're wrong. I think that if you look at data, we are not really eating more calories. If we're eating more calories, it's small, and it doesn't account for the increase in all of these chronic illnesses that are just really doubling over the span of 20 or 30 years. I mean, that's not just 100 extra calories a day. And then you have to look at it from a holistic perspective and ask, why are we eating more calories? Food is not more available today than it was in the 1970s. You can still go to the grocery store. There were no shortages in the 1970s. Yeah. Humans could eat the exact same amount of food. So some studies suggest that we're not eating more calories. Some studies suggest that we're eating slightly more calories. But if we are eating more calories, and I think in general a lot of people have the issue, and it's with satiety. And I think that that is another insidious problem with ultra-processed food, is that it makes us more hungry. And that hunger cue is very, very hard for us to ignore, if not impossible, nearly impossible. You can be super disciplined and lose weight eating Twinkies, but eventually that hunger is just going to catch up with you. You can lose weight with a caloric deficit of bagels or potatoes or any junk food. It's not that you can't lose weight eating processed food. It's just going to be much more difficult. And when we look at studies, when we put humans in controlled environments, and there's now 2 studies on this. Kevin Hall did a study, and there was recently a researcher in Japan that did kind of the same thing. They can put humans in a feeding ward where they control all of their intakes, and they present people with very similar sets of meals. One of them is ultra-processed food. One of them is essentially unprocessed food. They try and match the foods for presented calories, presented fat, protein, carbohydrates, presented salt, sugar, all of those things. And people are allowed to eat as much as they want, and the ultra-processed foods group invariably eat more. They come back for seconds and thirds. So there's probably something in these foods that are also sabotaging satiety. And that is kind of the beginning of the problem.
Interesting. What if the counter argument was that they just taste better than the healthy foods, and so we want more of that? Could that be an argument or no?
Taste better is that's a subjective thing, right? Taste better is happening in your brain, right? So taste better is not something that we can objectively measure.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it gets confusing sometimes as a consumer. Like, I have a lot of people on the podcast, and I am not a nutritionist, I am not a doctor, I try to stay fit, but it's confusing because there seems to be a war going on between multiple sides of the coin. And I think the war is interesting in a few ways. Like, even I was watching a video where you said canola oil is toxic sludge and got flagged as misinformation on Instagram. Like, what is canola oil? That was fascinating in your video. And why do you think that gets tagged as misinformation?
Right. So it's kind of like, who writes the history books? Yeah. Who determines what is truth? In 2024, if I'm saying it on Instagram, Meta determines what is truth, right? If I'm saying it on X, community notes determines what is truth. And that's a little bit better situation. Thanks, Elon. Not perfect, but a group of community members can have a more sort of democratic process than Meta. Mark Zuckerberg and his CEO of Instagram get to say, well, we've decided that we're going to look at this one meta-analysis, which is a study of studies on seed oils. And this researcher, usually they reference a meta-analysis from a researcher at Tufts. His name's Darius Mozaffarian, the same guy who gifted us with the Food Compass guidelines that told us that Fruit Loops and Cheerios were healthier than ground beef and eggs.
That's not great.
The same individual, clearly very omniscient when it comes to nutrition, very wise nutritional researcher, wrote a meta-analysis looking at some of the randomized controlled trials with seed oils, and he determined that no, seed oils are not bad for human health. So if I contradict him without actually getting to debate him or directly criticize his meta-analysis, which is kind of cherry-picked, then Meta can just say, nope, we're fact-checking you. So there is no objective truth in 2024. It just depends on the platform in which you are saying something. So they can say whatever they want, and you see this now post-election, you see this now, people are just, it's a war of fact-checking, right? And who fact-checks the fact-checkers? There's no one, I don't have the ability on Meta to come back on the back end and say, actually, here's why I think you're wrong. Here's why I actually think canola oil is problematic. So in answer to your question, canola oil is made from rape seeds, which are not actually a food for humans. It's different, perhaps, if we're talking about corn oil, because we eat corn, and we can talk about corn oil, right? I'm not a fan of corn oil either, and to get the equivalent of maybe 5 tablespoons of corn oil, you'd have to eat 70 ears of corn, which is a whole separate conversation. But rape seeds have never been eaten by humans, and really cannot be eaten by humans. If you just take rapeseed oil, there is a large amount of this monounsaturated fat called erucic acid in rapeseed oil. And that is linked to cardiomyopathy, heart issues in animal studies, and so it's actually banned. You cannot sell rapeseed oil. You also can't sell mustard seed oil for similar reasons. Researchers, I think in the 1980s or 1990s, genetically modified rapeseed oil to a low erucic acid variant, but still containing this fatty acid. And that was what was called canola oil. So canola is an acronym for Canadian oil low acid. There is no such thing as canola, right? This is the rapeseed or the Canola Producers Association of Canada thinking, hey, we have fields and fields of canola oil. We have fields and fields of this rapeseed, like let's do something with it. This is often how seed oils got into our food supply. They were used originally for other things. Originally in the early 1900s, they were used as engine lubricants and on ships in World War I and World War II because they stay slippery when they are wet. They still maintain lubrication. So they were industrial byproducts, and now they've been used in our food supply. So that's the first thing that kind of should make us question, like, is this something we want to eat? So canola oil, not really a food for humans, contains small amounts of erucic acid, but like all of the seed oils, and this is why I think we can really draw a swath across the seed oils, whether it's canola, corn, sunflower, safflower, soybean, those are the big ones, sometimes peanut. They're all refined, bleached, and deodorized. So there's a great video on YouTube of how to make canola oil, and you see these little seeds that are in this extruding press, and they're kind of like waxy substances getting pressed out. Then you get this murky oil, which then has to be heated and then refined and bleached and deodorized and extracted with hexane, which can be contaminated with benzene. So you get these neurotoxic components that are even used to make the oil. Then it has to be deodorized again, multiple times heated to very high temperatures, as high as 500 degrees Fahrenheit. So you have a polyunsaturated oil, which is a fragile oil, which can become rancid, quote unquote, quickly, being heated to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. The boiling temperature of water is 212, right? So that's like basically a very, very, very hot stove. It's an insanely high temperature for an oil like that, and you quickly break the oil. You degrade the oil very quickly. So then you take all of that and you package it into a plastic bottle, which leaches cadmium, lead, and antimony into the oil, and it sits on the shelf of a grocery store getting exposed to artificial light for months at a time and oxidizing further. And we are told by the American Heart Association that that is a heart-healthy option because it lowers LDL.
That is just such a mindfuck.
And it's completely myopic because the only metric that we're using to say that it's healthy is LDL. lowering, which is a whole nother ball of wax.
Running a podcast or any content operation is a grind. The editing, the clipping, the captions. It's enough to make anyone quit before the fun even starts. Enter Riverside. This tool is your content powerhouse. Forget decent quality virtual calls. Riverside gives you 4K video, pristine audio, and makes deadweight tasks disappear faster than bad ideas. Their text-based editor slashes, silences, and edits errors with one click. Needing some extra clips? Riverside's AI Magic Clips finds the moments people actually care about and delivers them to you. No guessing, no endless replays. And here's the kicker. You don't even need to record in the platform to use its features. You have the option to upload your footage to Riverside, letting it handle the heavy lifting. So you can save your brain power for the creative stuff. So stop drowning in edits, get busy creating, hit the link in the description, use code Cody, and thank me later. My father has high blood pressure, like so many Americans do. He's older. And what's interesting is I've heard you talk about this, that what does he do? He goes to the doctor gives him a series of pills for him to take. There's some talk of nutrition, marginal at best. And after years of being at the same doctor, nutrition is really not mentioned whatsoever. It's simply management of symptoms with these pills for this long. And I remember once we were going on a trip and he had forgotten his blood pressure medicine. And he's not particularly overweight or anything like that. He's quite normal. And he was worried about that. And I thought, oh my God, we have a healthy man sort of tied to a drug for something that I think you could fix with exercise and nutrition, theoretically.
100%.
What's going on there? And if you have high blood pressure, should you just take the pills? Is that the right answer alone?
So there's two different categories of high blood pressure, right? There's like primary hypertension and secondary hypertension. The majority of people who go to their doctor and get diagnosed with high blood pressure have primary hypertension, which is just related to diet and lifestyle. And most people, even in the mainstream medical community, would agree with that. Secondary hypertension is very rare. It can be caused by tumors that secrete things that change the blood volume. We're not talking about secondary hypertension. That's a diagnosable medical condition that requires a more sophisticated workup. Primary hypertension is the majority of what we see. My father had hypertension, right? And it is essentially an indication of vascular dysregulation. So the inside of our blood vessels, these are veins on my arm, but inside our arteries. When you're measuring blood pressure, you're really looking at the arterial pressure, not the venous pressure. So they put a stethoscope on your arm and they measure the arterial pressure in an artery that runs here in my arm. And so that is caused by dysregulation of the cells that line those arteries and don't allow them to expand and contract in a healthy manner. This is arterial dysfunction. Vascular dysfunction is what causes high blood pressure. Most of the time related to systemic inflammation in the body and linked to insulin resistance, also known as metabolic dysfunction. Insulin resistance and metabolic dysfunction, almost entirely fixable with primarily diet, intentional dietary choices, and a moderate amount of exercise. You don't have to be a marathon runner. And in fact, you probably don't want to be a marathon runner because you can go too far with exercise. So yes, this is a condition that is completely fixable, but as physicians, we are not taught to talk to patients that way. We are given this sort of subtle propaganda in medical school that your patients won't make dietary change. It's too hard for them. Right. Don't even bother asking. Or if you do, spend 30 seconds and say, hey, why don't you come back the next visit? Like, increase the quality of your diet. Like, eat some healthier foods. I'll see you in a month if it gets better. That's all I'm going to say to them. Eat healthier foods. What is a patient going to do with that? Go for a walk around your neighborhood, eat healthier foods. I'll see you in a month. Not surprisingly, in a month, their blood pressure is the same or worse, right? Yeah. So we're never given any reasonable tools in medical school. And before I went to medical school, I worked as a physician assistant in cardiology. So I've dealt with a lot of people with high blood pressure, even before my residency after medical school. And it's always the same story, right? It's much easier to say, here's an ACE inhibitor, here's a calcium channel blocker, here's a beta blocker, here's a medication. I know that's going to lower your blood pressure. And my really only job as a physician is to fix the thing that I am charged with, which is your blood pressure. I don't have any responsibility for really downstream side effects that might occur from this if they're dealing with your endocrine system or that. Then I'm going to refer you to someone else and say, well, I did the right thing, right, quote unquote. I did what my governing bodies in medicine have told me to do. I checked the box. He got a side effect. That's not my problem.
Yeah, and do you think that should one expect side effects from having high blood pressure, only taking pills? It seems like maybe that might be a reason why you're having other illnesses and disease pop up, but actually we don't talk about that. It's like, well, if I manage the symptom, then like whatever else happens is totally unrelated to said issue.
No, it's physiologic whack-a-mole, right? You can't, like if you have an imbalance in the human body, and this sounds woo-woo, but it's really not. Like if you have an imbalance in the human body, you simply cannot whack this mole without 3 more popping up. It's very difficult to give someone a medication for any condition and not have something else happen because of it. You give someone a proton pump inhibitor because they have gastroesophageal reflux, right? Well, then you have an increased rate of pneumonia because of side effects. Then you have malabsorption of multiple nutrients, including B12 and other things that are dependent on the acidity of your stomach. So you have all of these downstream side effects because the problem really wasn't that they had a deficiency of a proton pump inhibitor. This isn't a pharmaceutical medication deficiency. This is an imbalance. It's a signal to us as physicians or as patients, quote unquote, that there's an imbalance in your body. In the case of gastroesophageal reflux, it usually has to do with dysbiosis in the gut at some level, whether it's the small intestine or some part of this that's leading to a reflux and dysfunction of the esophageal sphincter. If you can get at the root of that and correct that with dietary change, lifestyle change, you probably don't need a proton pump inhibitor. And it's just the story being played out over and over and over in Western medicine. It's so sad, and it really forsakes so many people.
Yeah, it's really sad. And I think what's interesting about what you do is that, you'll look at these randomized controlled studies and say, let me show you not only why this isn't true, but how to look at studies. And so like you had one where you were looking at seed oils in humans. Maybe it was the same guy, but you were saying, here's all the reasons why this study that everything is referencing, turtles all the way down to this study, is actually problematic. And I think that would be interesting for people to hear. Like, how do you determine, no, my doctor says this study, and why is it that doctors don't take the next step, which is go, hey, this study isn't actually well executed?
It's a lot of time, as physicians. We can talk about that with seed oils because that's a really important point. But as physicians, most of us work in an insurance model, which doesn't pay us for outcomes, it pays us for time.
Yeah.
And so if we are not seeing 4 to 5 to 6 patients an hour, it's very difficult to even pay your malpractice insurance or make a profit and support so there's a real financial constraint on physicians very quickly. You know that in medical school, the specialties that pay more are more prestigious and they're more competitive. If you want to be a dermatologist, if you want to be an orthopedic surgeon, if you want to be a plastic surgeon, those are the people who do the best in medical school because they make the most money, right? The people that make the least money in medicine, those are the least competitive specialties. So medicine is completely based on a financial model, and the motivations in medical school are to do as good as I can so I can make as much money. And look, everyone that goes to medical school is super smart and worked really hard to get there. But there's, even within medical school, there is a ranking of specialties. And so I have tons and tons of respect for people that work in internal medicine and family practice, but those specialties don't pay a ton of money, and they're doing really good work that people need to receive. And it's very difficult for a doctor to look at the methods and the history of any study that they're basing their decisions on. It's so much easier as a physician to just say, this is what I learned in medical school. This is what everyone else does. I am protected from malpractice liability if I do this thing, which is what are the guidelines. I'm going to do that thing. So in the case of this seed oil study, or multiple of the randomized controlled trials looking at seed oils, these are nutrition studies essentially, and there are some single-blind, some double-blind randomized controlled trials done with seed oils. Most of them were done, in fact, all of them were done really between the late 1950s and the early 1970s. So they're all 50 to 70 years old. We haven't had a randomized controlled trial with seed oils in 50 to 70 years. No one has done these studies. So we are looking at methods, we are looking at nutritional knowledge that is 50 to 70 years old when these studies were designed.
Why?
Because there's no funding. What pharmaceutical company stands to benefit from doing a trial comparing saturated fats and soybean oil today? None.
Wow.
So much of what we see in the medical literature, so much of what we're taught in medical school is pharma-funded research. That's all that's done today. That's the majority, right? It's not all, but it's the vast majority. And there's a zeitgeist. There is an accepted sort of network saying You can't even ask this question now. With your grant, your proposal will just be laughed at. Everyone knows, Cody, quote unquote, that saturated fat is bad for humans. You can't even propose a study that's using saturated fat in one of the arms of the study today without getting a lot of pushback. Maybe you could get it through an IRB, but there's become so much groupthink. And I think that's going to change with this administration and maybe overhaul at the level of the NIH. But there are certainly questions that have been omerta, that have been unable to be asked in the last 15 to 20 years of research. It's very hard to do any research today that questions the lipid hypothesis, which is again something we can talk about regarding LDL cholesterol and direct connections of heart disease. That idea is so entrenched that if you propose a study to question that, it's going to be pretty hard to get this approved. So if you wanted to do a randomized controlled trial with seed oils in humans, that's not observational. You're looking at 5 to 7 years with 300 to 500 patients, maybe to start. 1,000 would be better. You're looking at $20 to $50 million to fund that study. Who's going to push that bill? Like
Nobody.
No, like the Butter Association isn't, and if the butter, there's no Butter Association, right? But like if the National Tallow Association funds it, there's going to be so many cries it's corrupt, right? So, agriculture can't fund it. A seed oil company wouldn't. Why would they fund it, right? Why would Kraft or Procter & Gamble or Bunge, which is a company that makes seed oils, why would they fund that study if it could potentially make seed oils look bad? And a study like that, if it were done, that would erode the foundation of so many of the foods that we are given in the grocery store so profoundly that it would probably cause a collapse of our food system for a short amount of time. If RFK Jr. is able to actually get meaningful legislation or meaningful scientific decision-making done on seed oils, think about how many foods in the grocery store are going to have to be labeled differently. That is a multi-billion-dollar, potentially hundreds of billions of dollars are on the line here. There's a lot on the line with this, with seed oils. So there's a lot to be protected there in terms of the conceptualization by the public that Doritos, as long as I don't eat too many, maybe it's not the biggest problem. When the flip side of that coin is, look, we live in a free society. You can do what you want. You're sovereign, but that's freaking poison. And if you like eating Doritos, like you need to understand that's poisonous for you. We're allowed to do things that are poisonous for us. We're allowed to drink alcohol. We're allowed to do a lot of things that are poisonous, to take risks, to smoke cigarettes. But hopefully we can get some real honest conversation and maybe even some studies that need to be done to help people understand that like that is poison. Do what you want, but don't give it to your kids thinking that it's okay. So it's a really tricky, it's like a Gordian knot. It's really difficult to untie all of this.
Yeah. Well, and what's crazy, I think, is like, for instance, and we'll blur this out because this is a buddy's company and we like the buddy, but I had no idea until I saw another video that you did about aluminum cans. I was like, I'm doing so good. I don't drink plastic. Of course I don't, because that would be bad. And people say microplastics are not good. So I have my nice little aluminum can. But talk to me about what is inside here, because it turns out maybe this isn't such a good idea. It's not
ideal, right? So you're still drinking out of a plastic bottle, drinking out of an aluminum can. There's really clear videos that have been done where they take acid, a sulfuric acid, and you can dissolve the aluminum. And what you end up with is a plastic bag. It looks like a condom.
Yeah, you can kind of twist the plastic inside of it.
You can twist the plastic or you can completely dissolve it. There's a plastic bag in your aluminum can, invariably. You cannot put any liquid in an aluminum can like that because the aluminum will leach into the fluid. And we know that you probably shouldn't be drinking aluminum. Yeah. You shouldn't be wrapping your food in aluminum foil for the same reason. We don't want the aluminum touching food. There's potentially problems with excess aluminum in our diet. So what do we do, right? Everything has to be in glass. It's not really tenable in terms of weight and economies of scale, but I just think it's important for people to understand that like knowledge is power, know better, do better. And for those people that are suffering, which is really, this is the ethos of all of the content that I make now, and it's been an evolution, is like, look, if you're thriving, don't change anything. Yep. But if you're not, I want people to know that there are a lot of these inputs that they're doing in their life that could be potentially contributing in a cumulative manner. I did a video recently about these printer receipts at grocery stores.
People were mad.
People got super triggered. But look, there's solid evidence that touching these receipts can lead to absorption of endocrine disrupting chemicals through your skin. So, like, don't hate me. Like, this is thermal paper. This is a big deal. I mean, Shanna Swan's been on Huberman's podcast talking about this. This is not pseudoscience. Now, is one receipt going to kill you? No, and I said that in the video. But people just get so triggered because they can't wrap their head around the number of things that are toxic in our environment. And I get it. We live in a pretty scary place. And so it's not about being perfect. It's just about doing better. And what I'm about is kind of hope for people. I've met so many people over the years in medical school, in my training, working as a PA, working as a physician, who end up at a place of despair because they're sick and no doctor they see gives them any idea that there's a way out. All you can do is take this medication, which we know has side effects. So that's incredible to me. If you don't have a way out, what are you supposed to do? You might as well you're going to live the rest of your life with a lower quality of life than you could possibly have. That's wild. That's horrible. But I want people to know that there are so many ways out that they may not have heard about. That's what I just want to put it out there. Tools for people when you're ready. If you're doing great, drink out of cans. Who cares?
Yep.
Touch your receipts. Okay, fine. But if you have hormonal dysfunction, infertility, low libido, obesity, depression, like some of these inputs, they matter in a cumulative way. And being intentional with little steps can make a big difference over time.
So true. I mean, for instance, I have a lot of girlfriends, now I'm a little bit older, who are struggling with infertility. And, it always bothered me that the story about reproductive rights was always one-sided. It was like reproductive rights are, abortion rights. And I think you should believe whatever you want to believe about that.
Right.
But I want the other side of the coin too. Reproductive rights are also, why is it harder for women to get pregnant seemingly? And why is nobody talking about that? So maybe along that same vein, I hear Paul Saladino will not date a woman who wears lotion, perfume, or Lululemon. Is this true?
It's pretty true.
It's pretty true.
Or if she's amazing, I'm going to try and convince her not to do those things.
Okay, so let's talk about it. So what's the deal with lotion, perfume, Lululemon, and women?
So let's do lotion and perfume first.
Okay.
These are cosmetics, but all cosmetics, anything that we're putting on our skin, whether we're a man or a woman, is being absorbed. Skin is, and it's not a lipid, impermeable barrier. It's not a water impermeable barrier. A lot of things you put on your skin can be absorbed. We know this, and this is the problem. That we are porous, right? We have pores. This is how we sweat, and pheromones come out, and we regulate fluids in our body. We are full of holes. We just can't see them. So anything you put on your skin is going into your body and being absorbed into the cells at your dermis and epidermis. So there have been interesting studies looking at women specifically in the study and cosmetics and personal care products, whether it's deodorant or lotions, and women who make a change and remove the personal care products that have parabens and phthalates and other endocrine disruptors. A lot of the stuff around forever chemicals is not noted on labels, so it's subtle. But women who make an intentional change to remove those things, we see noticeable, marked, statistically significant decreases in levels of these compounds in their body within a few days.
Wow.
We're talking like the levels can go down by 50%. So there's a massive input. And these are not things that occur naturally in our bodies, right? These are BPS, BPA, parabens, phthalates, which have many iterations and incarnations.
And why are those bad? Why don't we want them in us?
Because they look like our hormones, right? They're imposters. And so a lot of them mimic estrogen specifically. So they can mimic estrogen at the receptor and block its action. They can stimulate excess estrogen action. They're disrupting our hormones. We are delicate, right? And we're resilient, but we're also delicate, right? Yeah. So like humans have never been in contact with these chemicals. There are things in, quote, nature that affect us in certain ways, but these are just new things for us. Maybe in another 1,000,000 years, I don't know if Homo sapiens will last that long, or 300,000 years, our bodies will adapt to these compounds, but they're not very adapted now. These compounds have only been in our sphere of existence for the last 50, 30, 20, 10, 5 years.
Yep.
That's way too quickly for our bodies to adjust. Who knows if we ever will. So now they're just this new piece of information that our bodies are unaware of. And it really can cause problems for humans in terms of, like you said, fertility, all sorts of hormonal things in women and men.
Yeah. You know what's interesting too is, have you seen the new trend with young girls where young girls are starting to put on cosmetics and skincare products younger than ever?
Wow.
And so if you look at actually the growth in the cosmetic industry in female cosmetic products, the number one growth is sub 16 years old. So we are having we are having salicylic acid and night and eye cream for 12 and 11-year-old girls.
Wow.
Who do not need it, by the way, whatsoever, of course.
Right.
And so fast, with such high margins, that they also are creating these little,
they're like refrigerators for little girls, and I swear to God, you can look it up and see if there's a video here for you, but there's these little refrigerators that they put on top of the girls' countertops that you put all of your face products in.
Okay.
And this is a new trend for them. And there's starting to be these side effects for young women where, not young women, young girls, where salicylic acid on like a face that doesn't have acne, I mean, you're not really getting acne when you're 8, 9, 10, 11. And so, it's interesting to see. I can't even imagine what's going to happen to the next generation because I didn't start all that until I was in my 20s, probably.
Wow.
You know?
It's scary.
Yeah, I think so too.
And you look at young girls hitting puberty earlier and earlier. You know, there are all of these compounds in our environment that are affecting us negatively. You also asked about Lululemon.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. I mean, I just saw an article a couple of weeks ago about whether it's a sports bra or leggings. When you sweat in these, it increases the absorption of chemicals in these pieces of clothing significantly.
Yeah.
If you're wearing leggings and they're dry, it doesn't look like we absorb much from it, right?
Yeah.
Women don't absorb much from the leggings. But women, most of the time, this is athleisure. They're like going to the gym after
Or me in the sauna.
Right, you're in the sauna or you're running. So a lot of times, women especially, men don't wear as many of these like tight products on our bodies. We can sometimes. Men in jiu-jitsu wear these rash guards, right, which are kind of the same thing as like a sports bra in some ways, right? It's a polyester piece of clothing that adheres to our body and we get super sweaty in it. So men are not immune from this, but generally we're thinking of women wearing leggings and sports bras, sweating in them. There is like documented research evidence that increases the absorption of endocrine disrupting chemicals, again, BPS, BPA, which is a whole bisphenol series, parabens and phthalates, into the body. And then what does it do? We're just now beginning to understand this.
Wow. Yeah, plus, have you seen women's leggings lately? They are everywhere. They're very tight. I Collective, Taylor's gonna laugh. There's these new leggings that you just see. I'm like, I'm a chick and I'm looking. I'm sorry. Like they are up in everything. So what do you do? You throw your expensive leggings away? You buy only cotton ones? What's the answer here?
I mean, it's just like knowledge is power. Know better, do better. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. If you're thriving, maybe that's not the biggest input, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the biggest lever to pull. If I'm in that situation, I'm thinking, okay, somebody needs to start developing leggings and sports bras in better fabrics. This is a business opportunity for a whole growing segment of men and women. If it's men, if it's rash guards, right? For me, like I'm a surfer. There are 0 companies that make board shorts out of anything but polyester. And believe me, I've tried to surf in cotton shorts. It doesn't work very well. It's horrible, right?
Yeah.
There was a company, Kelly Slater's company, used to make wool board shorts, and they discontinued them. So hopefully, by education, there can be an increased awareness and demand for these products in the market, and it's a new space. I've seen women starting to wear leggings that are cotton, or look, if it's 5% spandex but mostly cotton, that's way better than 100% polyester.
Yeah.
Way better.
Yeah.
Also, underwears for women. What is your underwear made out of?
I did the whole organic cotton switch.
It's probably important.
Yeah.
Like these tissues that are covered by sports bras and underwear are very absorptive. They're mucosal tissues. So it's a big deal.
Okay, really important comment. The thing is, I haven't met that many super hippie women that age super well. It's like there's a lot of wrinkles. Oh, maybe that's why.
It's because they're all vegetarians.
My husband's really funny. He'll be like, you don't need Botox. I'm like, you never see me without it. Like, you have no idea. You don't know what I look like if I never get Botox because I've had it before. Don't tell me it's bad for me. I don't even want to know.
We can talk about it. It's a separate conversation.
Okay, fine. But like, what do you think about this, aesthetic we have today, at least for women? It looks a certain way, and it's really hard to get products that are healthy on your face.
So again, this is just my perspective as a man.
You're not doing Botox.
I don't do Botox. I've never done Botox. I've never really done anything cosmetic for my face, and people will be like, "Yeah, that's because your face. That's why you look old." Whatever.
You look old. You look great. Internet's rude.
Thank you. Whatever. People will use that as an opportunity, I'm sure, to hate. But like, I don't want to put chemicals on my face. I refuse to do it. And in terms of the Botox, I'll just say this: like, as a man, I have trouble dating women whose foreheads don't move.
Look at this.
Because
I'm perplexed. I'm upset. I can't lift an eyebrow. Is it working?
I mean,
you want to see it. You want to see the wrinkles.
There are 200 plus. People can fact check me on this. Maybe I'm off a little bit. There are many, many muscles in the human face, and I think that we've evolved this very delicate communication between men and women, but also between women and their children and men and their children, whereby our expressions, like this is so much communication in the way that I move my face beyond the intonation of my words.
That's true.
So I can be on a date with a woman and think like, there's nothing coming back at me, right? Like I have no idea what's going on here. How are we going to form a partnership? And I actually have concerns, and there is a hypothesis that women with too much Botox could potentially impair pair bonding with their children. Oof. Because the infant is not seeing the woman's face move. You remember during COVID when everyone was wearing the masks and so many kids were sort of delayed in terms of their social skills? Botox is kind of the same thing, but with the top half of the face, or with the forehead and with around the eyes.
Yeah, I don't do the eyes, but now they have these new silicone strips. This is really, I'm sure, important to you that that you could put on here instead. That's supposed to help with the lines. But yeah, you can be pretty vain watching yourself on TV all the time as a woman. Also, I think we did a series that like opened up my eyes. I mean, if you think about my generation, I'm 38, and we went through. Let's see, what did we go through? We went through heroin chic, remember that? Like Kate Moss, so like as skinny as humanly possible.
I didn't know what it's called, okay.
Now you do. Add that to your repertoire. You tell me about crazy like multi-syllable words in medicine, I'll teach you about heroin chic.
Okay, heroin chic, Paul. Let's go.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
So we got heroin chic back in the day. That was where we were told be as skinny as humanly possible. That's sexy, right? And then we went from that to actually expanded bodies, so like the big Kim Kardashian butts, the puff fit lish, the silicone, chest. Then we've most recently gone to, releasing all of those. So now we want to release the fillers. We want to have a more natural look. And so in my lifespan, which is like 20 years of being cognizant of these things, we've had 3 materially different body types as a woman. And so imagine that. These young women these days are thinking that they actually have to change their body composition in order to fit a beauty norm. How scary.
It's so hard. I have a younger sister, so I'm a little bit aware of this because I always felt for her having to go through these beauty norms, and I think that she's navigated it very well and very gracefully. But I think in many ways, I think that it's got to be very, very difficult as a woman to navigate that today, whether it's dating or marriage, and especially a woman who is in the public eye. Right? Yeah. I mean, I'm a man. I'm a 47-year-old man, and I still get self-conscious about being in the public eye. And I've just kind of released it and been like, look, this is what I'm about. Like, I'm trying to do the best I can and be authentic about the way I look as a 47-year-old man. I take care of myself, but it's hard, right? Yeah. And I think it comes back even more on women because there are such different, I would say, impossible beauty standards.
Yeah, well, and also there's like financial reasons for why women care about it. Like we have quote unquote pretty privilege, and I should check my validity of my studies, but there's quite a few studies that show that women who wear makeup have a double-digit, and we won't get that specific about the numbers, but somewhere between 15 and 30% increase in pay just from wearing makeup versus not, all things else being relatively equal.
That's crazy.
So you can kind of see why you might start paying more attention to the way that you look and dress. Of course.
Well,
which makes a lot of sense.
You have to keep up. It's like, I'm reminded of Lance Armstrong in the Tour de France. If everyone is doing steroids, if everyone is doing EPO, erythropoietin, if everyone is doing drugs in your sport, you have to do that to even be seen as like competitive. And so in the marketplace, or it's a hard thing for women because if men on the other end, and I always wonder how much of these beauty standards are women doing it for other women versus women.
Probably the most.
Versus women doing it for men. But if men are seeing this, our perspective on this is being warped, or other women, who want to date women, right? So like whatever prospective partner you want, their perspective of what someone attractive is being warped again by social media and these crazy norms that are happening. AI is not helping that.
Yeah, I agree with that. Truth. You don't use deodorant, toothpaste, no lotion, no cologne, and you use beef fat as sunscreen.
Mostly truth, yeah. So I don't use deodorant, generally speaking. If I'm going somewhere and have to be super professional and I don't, want to have any scent, I might use apple cider vinegar or rubbing alcohol, but I don't use any traditional.
You just rub it underneath?
Yeah, you just spray it or rub it underneath.
Are you smelly?
I don't think so. But I smell like a human.
You smell like a human.
Yeah. I mean, like,
he smells lovely.
Could I potentially...
Okay, ready?
Let's go.
No, you actually smell totally normal. No deodorant.
No deodorant.
And you're sweating.
I'm sweating. I'm sitting
the day?
here. Yeah.
Wow.
I think that a lot of...
Codie approved.
Okay, wow. That was a tense moment there. You're like,
could have gone sideways.
And then I don't use toothpaste. Again, this is one of the things that I get a lot of flack for.
No toothpaste.
Toothpaste is just silly. Like, look, first of all, I'm not a fan of fluoride. And there's a lot of fluoride in toothpaste. And there's a lot of fluoride in drinking water, et cetera, et cetera. So please filter your water with a filter that actually gets fluoride out. You don't need fluoride in your toothpaste. When I was a kid, I had these fluoride trays that they used to put in my mouth at the dentist. I shudder to think about this. Anyway, you don't need fluoride in your toothpaste. And there are natural toothpastes that don't use fluoride, but then they have things like SDS, sodium dodecyl sulfate, or diatomaceous earth, things that could even be, SDS could be disruptive to the gut flora. Sometimes diatomaceous earth or other ingredients are too abrasive for the enamel of our teeth.
Isn't that like what murders little insects
it can,
that you put in plants and stuff?
Yeah. And maybe diatomaceous earth isn't in toothpaste anymore, but sometimes they use things that are abrasive. People used to brush their teeth with baking soda.
Yeah.
This is not a good idea, right? It's way too abrasive for the enamel. So our mouth is like a reflection of our gut flora, right? And if you have bad breath, it's not that you're not brushing your teeth with toothpaste, it's that you have dysbiosis in your gut, right? So it all comes back to quality of food. I remember this time when I was in PA school, so my late 20s, I was going out on a date with a woman and I used to love Listerine. I was like, this is the greatest stuff ever. It just, and I left the house and my dad was like, he just said, what? I can smell it, it's too much. And I was like, no, it's good, it's good. I used to just crush the mouthwash, but now we know that mouthwash, it kills all of the flora in your mouth, which are essential for the production of nitric oxide. There are studies in people who are working out in the gym that when they use mouthwash, it actually attenuates how much muscle they can gain. It affects the quality and the improvement in your physiology when you do workouts by using mouthwash. So you don't want to carpet bomb your microbiome in your mouth, in your gut. We need these bacteria, and we cannot sterilize ourselves. We cannot. Look, if you go to the bathroom, wash your hands, fine. But understand that there are endocrine disruptors, potentially microbiota disrupting chemicals in many of the soaps we use. And so I don't see the point to using soap on my skin. I'm not literally swimming in mud all day. I'm okay, you know?
So no washing hands with soap after going to the bathroom?
Well, what's in the soap, right?
Yeah.
Is it fragrance? Is it paraben? Is it phthalate? Is it triclosan, which is, I think, pretty problematic for the human gut microbiota. Okay. So if you want to use like a natural soap after you go to the bathroom, okay, but know what's in it, right? And so many of these fragrances and parabens and phthalates are problematic.
So just water?
Water most of the time, yeah. And
what about like tallow body soap?
Tallow body soap would be much better.
Okay.
Much better, yeah. And again, like, I think that as humans, we are worried about what other people will think. We don't want to smell. We don't want to smell a certain way. We don't want our breath to be bad. And so much of this comes back to the quality of just the way we live our lives, right? What is the quality of the food you're eating? That's when you get bad breath if you're not eating that well. So that's the issue here. And I think that there are ways to make healthier toothpaste, but again, it's kind of based on this fear around, if I don't brush my teeth, my breath will be bad. And that's not really what happens. Like, humans have a natural smell, which probably is attractive to people.
That makes sense.
The other question is, do you want to, we probably cannot cover our pheromones, but we probably don't want to cover our pheromones for our partners, for potential partners, more than like at all. Like, we want people to smell us as humans. That's a connection that we have with other people. And this is all completely against the societal norm, and so it's very controversial, but I want people I'm on a date with to be able to smell my pheromones as a human. We can talk about birth control too. There's so many
rabbit. Now smelled your pheromones.
What's that?
So I said, now I've smelled your pheromones.
You smell my pheromones.
We're on the same page. Okay.
You can, and you know, like, if you're on a date with someone or you're dating someone, you want to know if there is genetic compatibility there.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
And that is affected by our pheromones and these signals. And though there hasn't been much research into human pheromones, the evidence is so overwhelming that they're there, just anecdotally or observationally. Humans have pheromones. All other mammals produce pheromones. Why would humans not produce pheromones? Have you seen the studies on birth control? This is relevant. So women who take birth control select different partners when they're presented with sweaty t-shirts. So they've actually, speaking of who funds these studies, like, look, maybe there's hope for seed oil studies, because somebody funded a study where women on birth control were given sweaty t-shirts from men And they knew sort of the immunologic signature of the men in the t-shirts. And women on the birth control selected different mates in terms of compatibility with their genetics than women off birth control. So what happens is that women on birth control select men who have more similar genetics. Women off birth control select men with different genetics, mostly at this MHC antigen locus in the immune system. In nature, mates are generally chosen based on genetic diversity. You want someone with different genetics than you, so you have the most robust offspring in terms of mate pairing, right? And you can see in populations that have a lot of inbreeding that people generally have more diseases and become less robust quickly. This happens in a lot of populations. You get these rare diseases that are amplified that shouldn't happen. We want diversity in terms of human mating and combinations of genetics. And so women on birth control are kind of choosing the wrong partners.
It's so scary.
And it begs the question of women on birth control choosing a partner, getting off birth control, getting pregnant, and then how many relationships does that end or cause problems with when you're actually not that compatible with your partner now and you've had a child with them or you're pregnant with them?
That's
so
wild.
In terms of choosing a partner, pretty important to know these things and sample these things. There's another study that I'll mention which is really wild on the same topic. They looked at strippers. And there are strippers on birth control and strippers off birth control. And when the strippers off birth control are performing, they earn the most tips right around their ovulation. They have a huge peak in the month when they ovulate. And the rest of the month is like less tips, right? The women on birth control earned the same amount of tips all month and it was much lower. So if there are any strippers listening to the podcast,
big audience,
and you want to make more money, you got to get off birth control. But clearly men know, right? And men are paying women more when they're ovulating. There's something going on here. They're communicating. And being on birth control abolishes that. So like making mate pairing more difficult, birth control, pheromones, smelling, that's how we got on this topic, from like soaps and perfumes and all these things.
Fascinating. So let's say that you buy into it and you're like, okay, I want to decrease a bunch of these endocrine disrupting extra things that we do. What do you do so that you can still sort of manage through society? Is it tallow soap? Is it shaving your armpits if you're a man? Is it eating certain types of food? How do we not be smelly and also be healthier?
So again, the option, it's pretty simple, right? There's like rubbing alcohol, apple cider vinegar. There are more natural deodorants now that have no parabens and phthalates. There are more natural toothpaste. If you absolutely want the minty fresh feel in your mouth, which whatever, you do you know, like there's options. And I think that it's avoiding the lesser options, avoiding the ones that are going to be problematic in a cumulative fashion, because there's a lot of things that we're putting on our body and in our mouths that are not even food. We haven't even talked about food yet, right? So yeah, there's so many better options today. Again, there's probably a niche for food or for clothing companies to make better quality clothing, but you don't have to be completely, living in the jungle in Costa Rica like me.
Well, you told me about, what is it? Is it seed oil tracker or seed oil scout?
Seed oil scout.
Seed oil scout, which is cool. So you can go to restaurants and try to find restaurants that don't use seed oils.
Yes, the guy that did that app is coming to the film premiere tonight.
Amazing.
Yep. So Heart and Soil is doing a premiere of a mini documentary that I did with them. It's called Fed a Lie, and it's about seed oils. And that's tonight, and he's coming to that. So you can meet him. Yeah, it's awesome. So when you go to restaurants, again, it's the overarching framework that I keep coming back to is that convenience is the enemy of health. If we just do what everyone else does, we get what everyone else gets. And most of the people in our sphere, unfortunately, are going to have health issues or chronic disease or infertility issues. And if we want to live a life that is different than that, we have to be intentional and swim upstream. And that means inconveniences, whether it's inconvenience of cooking your food ahead of time or the inconvenience of going to a restaurant and being that guy or that girl that asks the waiter, what is this cooked in? Or looking at the menu beforehand and thinking, do they have something that is unlikely to be cooked in seed oils? Sauces, these things are almost invariably full of vegetable oils, seed oils.
Yeah, I mean, because of you, actually, I listened to a podcast you did with somebody else, and you laid out this framework, and then I thought, well, this will be fun. I just want to go for a week and ask all of the different restaurants that I go to, nice restaurants, expensive restaurants, what sort of oil they cook in, and it just said, I have some allergies, which is true. I have allergies to some things. It doesn't happen to be those, but then I feel like they might have to tell me. And I can only find 2 restaurants here that only use olive oil.
Daidue?
Daidue and The Well.
Really?
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about seed oils earlier. I think seed oils are problematic for humans when they're sitting on the shelf what happens to a seed oil when you heat it? So now you're heating it again. It becomes even more highly rancid and oxidized and processed when you heat it. So one of the worst things is French fries, right? That is a fryer. You're boiling the oil for days at a time. I went to a KFC and an In-N-Out recently to do content, and I asked them, how often do you change the fryer oil, which is peanut and soybean oil? They say once a week. Once a week? You have a seed oil to start with, which is highly rancid and oxidized, and then you're boiling it for 12 to 16 hours a day, and you're changing it once a week? Are you kidding me? So
we're going to have to save the new administration, because did you see the new picture of them with RFK held hostage on the plane with McDonald's?
I was so disappointed.
I mean, I have to just, they're the ultimate trolls. It's like the best entertainment of all time.
Do you think they were trolling?
I think RFK probably was like, yeah, what are we going to do? But I think that they are brilliant at it. But I thought it was interesting because I looked at one of your other posts about the number of ingredients that just McDonald's pickles have. And then, do you remember that?
Yeah, it's like, what is it, like 19? 19 in French fries. I think pickles had 5 to 7 ingredients.
Yeah, I think it was 10.
Yeah.
Which is like, how is that even possible with the pickle? You would think a pickle was just vinegar and salt and a pickle, right?
And a cucumber.
Yeah, or right.
Right.
Is that how they make those? Right, cucumber.
So I'm super excited for RFK Jr., super disappointed that he was in the photo with the McDonald's, but super excited for his overhaul of the FDA, so the Food and Drug Administration.
Yeah.
This has to do with this generally recognized as self or the GRAS designation on foods. I think in the United States, we don't even know how many chemicals are in our food supply now. People estimate 5 to 10,000 chemicals that are part of this GRAS system. So these are chemicals that are supposed to have been tested for humans' safety and are generally not, because there is a process of grandfathering these chemicals in over the last 20 to 30 years where companies can just say, oh yeah, we tested it, we're just going to say it's safe. And the FDA is allowing this to happen. And one of the really interesting juxtapositions that's been highlighted recently by a number of awesome people in the health space is the difference in European foods versus American foods. In Europe, there are maybe 400 to 500 of these chemicals. In the United States, there are 5 to 10,000. We don't even know how many there are. And these have all come in maybe the last 15 to 20 years. So how many chemicals are in our food supply that are problematic for us long-term that we don't even know about? And these are not vitamins and minerals. These are additives. Sodium pyrophosphate, sodium benzoate, ready? Preservatives, TBHQ. Who knows? Like dimethylpolysiloxane, which is an ingredient in silly putty, which is in McDonald's French fries. Right? Like these are dyes, red 40, yellow 6, yellow 5, blue 5, right? We don't know what these do to humans long term. There have been some studies, but it's wild to think about. I think this is a huge part of the problem for humans, is that when you eat an ultra-processed food, whether it's Flamin' Hot Cheetos or Takis or this other Franken foods that I see at the grocery store, there are tons of these things in there, and they're accepted as safe. Kellogg's is saying that Red 40 is safe. I mean, a bunch of people marched to Kellogg's headquarters in Battle Creek, Michigan, and Kellogg's didn't even let them in the door. Kellogg's said, no, the FDA says our food is safe. When there are multiple studies in kids showing that these food dyes can potentially be linked to either allergic conditions or behavioral problems. And the same could be true of so many ingredients that we're not even thinking about in your ultra-processed food of choice. We don't know what these things do to us as humans.
Well, and also I think humans are incredible at self-rationalization. So like those people that are in Kellogg's and in Pfizer, they're not evil demons trying to take over the world, most likely. But could be. But I think most people were great self-rationalizers. And so if we explain that, hey, urban populations have food deserts, hey, this is a core constituency for most people who are of sub-economic level, thus without us, they can't actually eat, then we will explain our way into really bad practices as humans. And I think that's what we have to watch out for.
I mean, have you heard Callie Means talk about this when he worked at Coca-Cola and these other businesses, that if there was any suggestion of regulation, that they would use a race card or a financial hardship card, and they would not allow the regulation. Like it is that's racist to say that these junk foods, which are more affordable, are unhealthy. How are lower income populations going to be able to afford their food? Yeah. There is so much sort of maneuvering on the back end to protect these ultra processed foods, which have huge margins and are easy to make, and continue to support their availability for us as Americans. And look, it's a Pandora's box. They're already created. I think humans should have the ability to choose to eat those foods. I just think we need honest, candid conversations about what these things can be doing to us as humans. You know, a cigarette package has a warning label on it. And in other parts of the world, the warning labels are much more graphic than they are in the United States. I've seen cigarettes in New Zealand and other places when I've traveled, and they have pictures of people with with like trach tubes who can't breathe or on ventilators. They have pictures of people on dialysis or with plastic surgery need in their face because they've had so much cancer in their nose and mouth from chewing tobacco. In the United States, we have a little warning in words. They don't have any pictures, but why don't we have warning labels on Lay's potato chips and Doritos? And there's no question at this point that those foods are harming humans.
Yeah.
In many ways, and in kind with cigarettes. Like every time I make any sort of comparison to cigarettes, the nutrition mob comes after me and says, Paul Saladino is claiming that Doritos are worse than cigarettes. Like, this is crazy, right? It's like, get over yourself, guys. I'm not saying that, but Doritos are not health food. And cigarettes are an interesting juxtaposition. Cigarettes have a warning label. Why don't Doritos?
Yeah, I agree. Well, and the other thing that's interesting is, like, my father is a perfect example. It's hard for other generations to get on board with this. I'll talk to him often about, like, hey, let's, I saw your post on shredded cheese, American cheese, and trying to explain this to a different generation is very hard. So I think that the work's really important because we need to push back with some graphic illustrations, like that canola oil video of the sludge getting made. You're like, I don't know much, not healthy. I can just tell, not a good idea. That's it.
We have an intuition.
Right. Yeah, which is true. But as we kill our microbiome, the intuition becomes harder. So I think it's very, very true.
Yeah, and this is mirroring the conversation around beauty standards in humans. As the conversation gets diluted and confused, which I think is the main tactic that a lot of these manufacturers are trying to do, what is healthy and unhealthy becomes more blurred, and unhealthy food becomes more normalized. And we lose our intuition. A blue potato chip, right? Unless it's blue corn, which, corn is a separate conversation, but like a blue potato chip with food dyes, this is probably, I think our grandparents will be able to look at that and think that's a frankenfood. We're only a few generations removed from that level of intuition, but at a very simple level when it comes to food, if your grandmother didn't recognize this food, why are you eating it?
That's such a good point.
You just don't need to eat it. And if your grandmother's mother didn't, like that, a few generations back, we were so much better, even without any conversations around more nuanced of like meat versus plants, like just what are the foods that were in our food supply 100 years ago? They're not like what we eat today.
Let's talk really quick about what you eat, because you have a unique method for eating that includes like a more limited food supply. Will you talk about the foods you will put in your body?
Yeah. So I have a history of autoimmune illness. I had pretty bad eczema and asthma as a kid. Both of my parents are in the medical system. My dad is a doctor, my mom is a nurse practitioner, so I got over-medicated as a kid. They did the best they could. They didn't know. My dad wasn't trained either when he went to medical school at Georgetown University about foods.
So you think that you got those because of over-medication when you were younger?
No, I just know that I had those for whatever reason, a genetic predisposition in the setting, in the context of eating standard American diet, manifests those things, and I was over-medicated as a kid.
Yeah,
so I grew up with a lot of medications. That didn't affect me positively either. Giving your kid lots of antibiotics can affect their gut flora, right? Giving your kid lots of stimulants to treat their asthma, because we used to give children theophylline called Theodor. I got this in my applesauce when I was a kid. That makes kids anxious and hyperactive. So that doesn't help with elementary school performance or learning. So these things negatively affected my life, and it was this sort of domino effect. So at some point in my life, generally when I was out of college, I began to think about my food and started thinking about what I was doing with my food that was giving me this autoimmune condition, this series of autoimmune conditions. Really, it's a triad. It's called an atopic condition, right? It's basically eczema, asthma, and allergies. And it got to the point that it was bothersome to me. And I had numerous flares of my eczema that were very severe, requiring more systemic steroids, which are not great for anything. And at times in medical school, the eczema would get infected and I would get impetigo. So like from being on the mats for jiu-jitsu, so really impairing my quality of life. spurred me to think more specifically and intentionally about the foods that I was eating. Now, that has been a personal journey that I've written about and talked about on my social media. It began originally with a vegan diet many years ago, a raw vegan diet, which didn't do much for my autoimmune conditions, but I did lose 20 plus pounds of lean muscle to the point that I got super, super skinny. I'm about 165 pounds now. I was less than 145 at that time. And that was not intentional. I was eating as much as I possibly could, but without animal protein, the muscle goes away. In my case, and in many others as well. So that was a raw vegan diet. Then I sort of did paleo, and a paleo diet of meat and vegetables and nuts and seeds didn't fix the eczema. And I got to the point where I was thinking, in my residency at the University of Washington after medical school, I have really bad eczema right now, and I'm eating 85 to 90% organic foods that are colloquially considered to be healthy. No processed food. What is going on? There's something in my diet that is still triggering my immune system. That was when I did a carnivore diet, so strictly meat. And that was interesting because it fixes the eczema. Then fast forward a year and a half later, I end up with some issues regarding electrolyte balance due to long-term ketogenic diet. And so I started to add foods back in, which is the ultimate goal, I think, for a lot of people if they do elimination diets like a carnivore diet. And first I added in honey, then I added in fruit, and I found a pretty interesting middle ground, kind of carnivore 2.0, which I've called animal-based just as a framework for people in hopes that it's healthy. I don't think everyone needs to eat this way, but I think it's a good starting point for people. And so an animal-based diet is basically meat and fruit. But a lot of foods we think of as fruit, a lot of foods we think of as vegetables are actually fruit, things like avocado or cucumber or squash. So the reason I make the distinction between fruit and vegetables is that one of the interesting things about thinking about food that we eat from a carnivore lens was that there actually are defense chemicals in vegetables. And some of these can be detoxified when we cook them or when we ferment them, but not all of them. And a lot of people with autoimmune conditions do feel better when they eliminate some or all vegetables. Not everyone needs to. Again, if you're thriving, don't change anything about your diet. But I like this idea of putting tools into the world for people that they can access if and when they need them. So for me, I know from adding foods back that a lot of the vegetables actually do trigger my eczema, whether it's chocolate, tomatoes, which is technically a fruit, but it's a nightshade fruit. That whole family seems to trigger my eczema. White potatoes don't really agree with me. So some foods that we think of as healthy are problematic. Spinach is a good model to illustrate this because we think of that as like Popeye and it's this super healthy food. It's green, but spinach has a lot of a compound called oxalates or oxalic acid. Oxalates are a major component of the main kidney stone that humans get. 75 to 80% of kidney stones are calcium oxalate kidney stones, and dietary oxalate can be a major contributor to that. Probably the biggest contributor to our oxalate levels in our body. Oxalates are naturally produced in our body in small amounts from breakdown of certain amino acids, but spinach and other foods, almonds, navy beans, rhubarb, turmeric powder are some of the big ones. These are huge sources of oxalates. So if you have kidney stones or you have a family history of kidney stones and you don't want kidney stones, it might be well to avoid those things. We know that there are poisonous plants in the environment. I mean, I grew up in the Northeast, and at Christmas we would have these poinsettia plants. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
Super toxic, right? So kids, like little kids, should not eat the red leaves of the poinsettia. So not all plants are benign for us, and there is this spectrum of plant toxins. So that's an interesting distinction for me to think about. Again, you can detoxify some of these plant defense chemicals with cooking or fermentation, but not all of them.
The problem is that you have so much good content and so many things that I want to talk about because, I think a lot of the people who listen to this podcast, we're interested in money. We're interested in building businesses. We're interested in maybe ethics and morals and what it means to be an American. But man, you can't really have a strong bank account without a strong body. Or if you do, what does it really matter?
What's the point?
Yeah, what's the point? And so I think this is really interesting for anybody who wants to live a better life. I mean, also just if you want to have better brain function and cognition,
that's what I was going to say.
You got to be healthy.
It's going to pay dividends, right? Having better mental clarity means everything in your life is amplified. Romantic relationships, family relationships, business, make more money. You want to express your highest potential.
What's interesting is you have an organ food supplement line. What's it called again?
Heart and soil supplements.
Yeah, you have heart and soil supplements. And I actually forgot to tell you this, but my husband, Chris, is a big user of them.
Oh, cool. I brought you guys some.
Oh, he's going to love that. He gets all my gifts, actually. he actually got me on them because I found that organ meat was really helpful for my face, like just like collagen. Like I found for a while I was traveling a lot. I don't eat enough protein typically, and I don't do fillers or anything like that. And I kind of had these like bags under my eyes. And anyway, one of my doctors was like, are you getting enough collagen? And so I started taking some collagen protein. Kind of messed with my stomach. I didn't really like it.
It can.
And then I started eating some organ meat. But this is TMI for the internet. I felt like I smelled different. Is that a thing? Do people who eat a lot of organ meat smell different?
Was it better? What did your husband say? Was it better or
Oh,
worse?
like the smell, but he's a weirdo like you. He's like, I love the smell of you. I'm like, I don't know. It's weird.
Completely possible that you could smell different. Now, the context is there a human that's kind of turned on to this or in the same space and like,
they're into it. Yeah, he's a creep. He loves the workouts. Oh, the internet's like, not this. We're gonna have so many weird YouTube comments. But what I will say is that the supplements that you have, I don't have that.
Okay, interesting.
And so that was actually really helpful for me.
Okay.
But talk to me about. I think if the average person would hear, you know what I should do? I should eat more heart and kidneys and organ meat. That sounds gross. Plus, there was a really big, huge guy that did it, and there was a bunch of crazy stuff that came out about him.
I know.
And so, why would I do anything crazy like that? Why would I eat organ meats?
So if you look at meat, so you go to the grocery store, you see ground beef, you might see chicken, you see fish, you see steaks. That's all muscle meat. Muscle meat is super nutritionally rich for humans, very bioavailable protein, but it doesn't really have a full complement of vitamins and minerals. And organ meats, especially liver, if you start with liver, are this beautiful sort of completion of a nutritional profile. If you look at what's in a steak and what's in liver, there are very few vitamins and minerals that are not represented there. Vitamin C, so raw liver and raw steak do actually have vitamin C, but people could argue, rightly so, that you're going to get more vitamin C from orange juice. But other than vitamin C, there's not much in looking at a whole suite of vitamins and minerals that are not present in animal muscle and liver. People would say fiber, that's a separate conversation, so we get it. But if you just look at muscle meat, high in B12, high in zinc, high in iron, not a lot of copper, not a lot of folate, not a lot of biotin. Liver has all that stuff. Liver has copper, which balances zinc. So historically, humans have always eaten the organs. We waste nothing, right? Whether it's for calories or necessity or some sort of historical intrinsic knowledge that these organs are beneficial for fertility and vitality, we waste nothing. I went to Tanzania. I spent time with the Hadza, some of the last hunter-gatherers left on the planet. And when they had the liver of an animal, we hunted a few animals together, they treated it like gold. 2 hands placed gently on a rock, cut into small pieces, distributed evenly among the tribe. This is
raw.
This is a treasure. No, they cooked it.
Okay.
This is a treasure in their world. The treasure. All of the organ meats are a treasure. The hunter who killed the animal gets to eat the brain. And that's something that's queasy for us. But there are pieces of the organs, there are parts of the animal, the organs, that are a reward to hunters. Historically, the heart was gifted to the hunter who killed the animal, some sort of spiritual sort of recompense. So there's a lot of history of humans eating organs, and when you look at the science, it's fascinating around the nutrient profiles. But one of the coolest things for me is that building this company, Heart and Soil, that does these organ capsules for people that I do think make it easier to get organs. They're freeze-dried, which preserves as many of the nutrients as we can in a gelatin capsule, is that the team over there is amazing, and they did some really fascinating research about sort of nutritional benefits of organs that go far beyond the vitamins and minerals. And to do this, we had to go to libraries in Germany, like Heidelberg Library, and find the original volumes, because the historical research has been done since the late 1800s to like the 1950s and 1960s, but most of it has been in Europe, and it's in German originally. So just because it's in German doesn't mean that it's interesting, compelling research, but it does mean that most of us in the Western English-speaking world have never seen it. And so we actually had to find the original volumes and translate the research from German to English. And what you see is there's a lot of evidence that organs do support the corresponding organ in humans, which really breaks the mind of a traditionally trained doctor like myself. So when you give, we can take an embryo, for instance, and you put a little bit of liver on the embryo, and that liver concentrates in the liver of the embryo. You can do this with radioisotope labeling. You can do it with like other types of labeling, and you can see, like not visually, but in terms of measured research analysis, that the organ goes to the corresponding organ. So what is going on there? It's fascinating, and there are many, many stories now. It's anecdote, but this is a summed amount of lived human experience that I think is really important not to ignore, of humans eating organs or eating the desiccated organs like we make, and having benefits in the corresponding organs. We make a supplement at Heart & Soil called Her Package, which has uterus, ovaries, fallopian tubes, kidney, and liver. And so many women who have struggled with infertility or PCOS have found benefits from taking this. Again, this is just anecdote, but it's a fascinating sort of question to be asking. Are these organs beneficial beyond the nutrients in the organs? The dose of the organs is 3 grams a day or less. And there's interesting research that when you look at the organs, it's a fraction of the organ called the microsomal fraction that contains things like microRNA. And the hypothesis now that we come to looking at this historical research, which is fascinating, is that there are probably signals in the organs that are preserved in the freeze drying process, but potentially denatured when we cook the organs, that can signal and actually affect the genetics or the gene transcription and translation in the corresponding organs. So there's actually information and signals that could support an organ beyond the amount of hormones, because it's minuscule amounts of hormones in 3 grams of desiccated ovaries, right? We have another one for men, which has testicle in it, called Whole Package. Similar results for men in terms of male vitality. The amount of testosterone in Whole Package is minuscule. It's in there, we've tested it, but there's not a lot of androgens. And this was an original criticism of the organs, that you would have to eat 500 pounds of testicle to get a biologically active dose of testosterone. Maybe that's slightly off, but even a 3 gram dose appears to be beneficial. And there was actually a guy, there's been some published research in, I think it's 1889, in the Lancet, which is a historically, obviously very long-standing journal. I believe it was Brown-Séquard, who has a neurologic syndrome named after him. He taught at Harvard, elite universities in Paris, who injected himself with a testicle extract and reported that he had increased vitality at 72 years old. So this is fascinating, right? So the guys doing interesting things over 100 years ago. Most of this research on organs has been lost, but we're just helping to revitalize it and get people back into thinking about, like, oh, let me eat the whole animal. And if you can eat some of the animal, some of these organs raw, which obviously has potential risks that people should be aware of, or desiccated, that is freeze-dried, it's pretty interesting what's happening here. I think it's going to be a real sea change when people start to understand, and maybe we get some new contemporary research on this in a lab.
Did you know, for instance, silencer versus raw milk, which is more illegal in more states?
I bet raw milk.
Raw milk. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Yeah, like in Texas, you have to have permit numbers on raw milk here locally in order to get it, and you can't get all different types. But there are more states where raw milk is illegal than silencers, which I thought was interesting. Okay, next one. Homeschooling with no curriculum versus fentanyl.
You're saying,
You're guessing.
That's crazy. Homeschooling.
Isn't that homeschooling with no curriculum, that's an important caveat, versus fentanyl. And
wow.
It turns out that homeschooling is more illegal. How fucking crazy is that?
They want your kids propagandized. They want your kids hypnotized.
Oh my God, it's a real problem. But I want to play some other games with you really quickly. Rapid fire, and this is perfect. We can start with raw milk. Mm-hmm. I just did is this a bad idea or not? You can tell me. I just did a raw milk, goat milk cleanse with like herbs.
Okay.
For potential parasites. I did it for like 14 days. 8 days only raw milk. Mm-hmm. First it was awful, I think, because of the herbs. Like, it didn't feel very nice.
Yeah.
It's not enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I'm like marginally lactose intolerant.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really fun for everybody. But afterwards, but it's placebo. Maybe I feel better. Was that a bad idea or no?
I don't know anything about the
raw milk cleanses.
Yeah, raw milk cleanses. I think raw milk is amazing.
Do you drink it?
I drink it all the time. I drank it before I came over here. I've got raw milk in my backpack right there.
Of course you do.
Yeah, in a stainless steel water bottle with some glyphosate-free honey.
That tracks. Because you've also been known to take what to an airport that's really weird?
Coconuts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although I knew that trick.
You did?
Yeah, with the straw.
Yeah, you need the straw trick.
Yeah, that's an important trick.
I take all kinds of weird things through airports. They're always like looking at my stuff. I'm like, yo, guys, it's just hamburgers in a glass container. There's some squash there, and I brought some persimmons on the airplane today. I had some air-dried steak, and that's about it.
It actually sounds amazing. Okay, so we're into raw milk. Shredded cheese.
Can I just talk about raw milk for a minute?
Okay, let's do it.
So raw milk, any raw food has a risk of contamination.
Okay.
There are hundreds, if not thousands, of people sickened every year by eating salad, right? Sushi, all kinds of things that we are exposed to. Beef tartare. Raw foods have a risk, and the quality of the raw milk determines everything about how good the raw milk is going to be on the back end. if there's no difference between raw and pasteurized nutritionally, why drink raw? Why not just do pasteurized? But there's a lot of interesting science about raw milk positively affecting the immune systems of kids who drink it when they grow up on or off farms. So there are specific studies looking at lower rates of asthma, eczema, and allergies, the things I suffered from but didn't drink raw milk growing up, in kids who drink raw milk, whether they grow up on a farm or off a farm. That's interesting stuff, that raw milk could potentially program our immune system in certain ways. So we're kind of back to the organs thing, right? We're back to animal foods benefiting other animals across species. That's fascinating to me. So I would argue there are unique benefits to raw milk, and we should help support producers producing it safely and cleanly.
Why did we stop doing raw milk versus pasteurized?
Good question. So up until the early 1900s, all milk was raw. In the early 1900s, people were moving off of farms into cities and people wanted milk. A lot of people were sickened by raw milk because they were milking cows in subsanitary conditions, mixing feces or urine with the milk. Doesn't sound very appetizing. And they were feeding cows swill, which is the spent grains of alcohol fermentation. That's where the term swill comes from. And so they were feeding cows garbage foods. They were milking them in subsanitary conditions and people get sick. And then the milk was heated and pasteurized. And that helps with a public health issue. And we never sort of got back to the idea that we can now, with more technology, make milk raw in clean conditions and potentially expose this to people who can benefit from it.
Goat milk or cow milk raw?
I like both. I prefer goat milk, but that's just what I have access to easily in Costa Rica. There's a goat farm near me. I can go and milk the goats and see them.
Stop it.
No, I've done it. All the time.
I'm just picturing Paul Saladino with like a coconut in one hand, a goat in the other.
Like an udder in one hand, and yeah.
That's pretty incredible. Actually, this is a big movement. I feel like trad wives everywhere into your lifestyle. You probably have them knocking down your DMs right now.
I wish. It doesn't happen. No, I wish.
Okay, calling all single women.
I need a trad girlfriend.
Yeah, you do. I feel like they'd be into this.
The thing about cow milk is the casein variant. So there's A1 versus A2 casein in cow milk, and some people find they tolerate A2 better. So all Jersey and Guernsey cows are A2. And sometimes you'll see this terminology on cow's milk now. It'll say A2, A2. If I'm going to drink cow's milk, I prefer an A2 cow's milk. All goat milk, bison milk, camel milk, horse milk, whatever, everything else is all A2. So if people are sensitive, think about A1, A2 if you're drinking cow's milk, or if you want A2 and you can get goat, that's easier. Goat has about 11% less lactose, so still a significant amount of lactose for people that may be lactose intolerant. Despite anecdote, it looks like people can still get lactose intolerance from raw milk. If you start slow, maybe you can change it. I used to be pretty lactose intolerant, and now I drink probably a liter plus of raw milk per day and don't have any lactose intolerance symptoms, but it doesn't happen immediately.
Yeah.
And if you are lactose intolerant and you want to do milk, you can do kefir, which is fermented milk, or yogurt, or cheese. There are a number of raw cheeses that are fermented for more than 60 days that have essentially no lactose.
That's fascinating. You know what I found really interesting is when I did the goat milk cleanse, I was satiated. I was not hungry all day.
Right? Going back to our earlier conversation about satiety.
100%. So people are like, are you hungry? I'm like, I'm actually not. Like, not at all. Do I want that cheeseburger? Yeah, that sounds nice. But do I actually feel like I physically need it? No, I don't. So it's really interesting. I want to hit on this one's for Stanley Sanchez, my father. Let's talk about American cheese and shredded cheese really quickly, because he's a big fan of both. And your videos, they mess me up a little bit.
Yeah, so the thing is shredded cheese, a lot of shredded cheese has cellulose on it to prevent caking, and when I've done this in the videos, put shredded cheese in water, you can see that the water turns cloudy. It's just full of cellulose, which is wood pulp, and it's hard to know what type of cellulose the manufacturer uses. Some types of cellulose, some cellulose derivatives are probably pretty harmful for the gut. But if you don't want wood pulp on your cheese, you might just have to deal with shredded cheese that clumps a little bit. A lot of shredded cheeses also have natamycin added, which is an antifungal agent. You don't want your cheese to be moldy, but again, do we really have confidence that we know what long-term exposure to an antifungal like natamycin is doing to human guts long-term? We have all sorts of species in our gut. Some are bacteria, some are viruses, some are fungi. We want them to coexist healthily and happily, and more additives in your food with shredded cheese. American cheese is not actually cheese. It's only a cheese product. It cannot legally be called cheese because of the actual ingredients in it. And if you look at it under a microscope, it's full of all sorts of garbage, right? It's packaged in plastic, so certainly there are endocrine disrupting chemicals from that plastic leaching into this sort of plastic cheese. It's full of microplastics. It's just not a good thing to be feeding our families.
So what type of cheese do you eat?
I like any sort of raw cheese. So there's raw cheeses traditionally, like Parmigiano Reggiano in Italy. That is a raw cheese by definition. You cannot have a Parmigiano Reggiano certified cheese that is not raw. An equivalent in sheep's cheese is Pecorino. Gruyere is often raw. I like all of the raw cheeses.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, if somebody's listening to this today and they're like, where do I start? Like, what are like the 3 easy things today that I could start to do if I want to detoxify either the things I put on my body or the things I put in my mouth? What are you leaving them with?
Start with your food, right? Because you're taking it into your body. This is becoming the cells of your body. So I think that there's very little that we do in our lives that has a bigger impact than the food that we eat. And I think that don't let perfect be the enemy of good when it comes to your food. If you have health issues, think simple. Start maybe with meat and fruit, and then see if the health issues get better over time, and then add things back gradually. And that's just, I think, a good starting point for people as a framework, as a blueprint. Doesn't have to be that exactly. More broadly, just get rid of processed foods. Eat things that your great-grandmother would have recognized, and you'll be in a really good space with regard to food. In terms of clothing and everything else, just gradually start reading labels, and you'll be sort of wide-eyed and surprised, and think about what you're putting on your body, what you're putting on your skin, and improve that as you can.
I love it. I've been lately ending with this question of, you know, what's one, either maybe in your case it's a study, maybe it's a book, maybe it's a short story that you keep going back to again and again? Like, is there a source of inspiration for you written that you go back to?
Inspiration, or a study that I am interested in terms of the research?
Could be anything. Could be your favorite. Maybe you're really into fantasy books. That looks like you.
What are you saying about me, Cody?
I don't know what it is, but you tell me. What do you go back to, or is top of mind for you when I go to something that Paul keeps going back to learn from?
Do you know who Khalil Gibran is?
Yeah.
He wrote a book called The Prophet. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
So in terms of not science related, just life lessons, I always go back to The Prophet.
Why?
I just find it beautiful. I find the words beautiful on marriage, on children, on relationships, on love, on work. You know, it's a very interesting set of poetry that I think holds a lot of resonance for me.
I love that.
Yeah.
Paul Saladino, thanks so much.
Thank
for
you
being
so
here.
much for having me.